Tuesday for my regular day, and Thursday, oh, Sam is on now, and Thursday for Fix It and Toastmasters. And it
Oh,
was
good.
okay. I'm not thriving, but not I'm not debilitated either. I'm just not thriving.
Hello, Sam.
And there he is.
But we don't hear him. No, we don't hear
Doesn't
you.
have his earphones in.
No,
Um,
he's trying to figure out. He doesn't know what the problem is.
well,
He's trying to diagnose the
he's got
problem.
so many computers, and none of them have the correct audio. He'll get it in a minute. I think he can hear us. I'm not sure. Maybe not.
Um,
But
yes, I think he did. I think he can hear us.
if he turns on closed captions, then he can see if it's catching his own audio. Well, there's more than one way to confirm that your microphone is working on.
I
There,
like that. That's a good idea.
there's a test mic feature, and then there's just turn on the captions and see if it's getting your speech when you're not muted.
Well, he knows that we're not getting it because I told him, and I think he is hearing us. Oh, but
Uh,
you're saying if he wasn't hearing us, but then he wouldn't hear your suggestion either.
I don't know. Sam is savvy enough with computers and Zoom to be able to figure these things out. There are other people who, when something doesn't work, they just, they go catatonic and don't know what to do. And
Yeah,
even if you tell them what to do, they don't understand, you know, the guidance.
a lot of people are like that.
I mean, it's unbelievable how, what's the word I'm looking for? Um, Functionally illiterate or technologically illiterate so many people are that when some piece of technology doesn't work, they just haven't a clue, not a clue.
I think that's because we're trained to not even think ahead, to wait and tell us for somebody, to give us directions.
Well, yeah, I mean, most people, first of all, they don't have the knowledge to uh, employ a technological model to diagnose things, and they're liable to just, randomly guess the wrong diagnosis anyway, and then they'll do the wrong thing. Oh, there's Sam. Now let's see. He's on a different machine now.
But now you're actually muted.
Okay, testing. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yeah,
we can.
Okay, cool. Sorry, I overslept.
yeah, don't worry about it. It's only a few minutes.
Keep going. I do have a couple of things that I wanted to bring up, but I'll do that in a few minutes.
Yeah. So, I mean, I never realized how rare it was for people to not have any real reasonable faculty at model-based reasoning, because that was my career, that was my discipline, and I was surrounded by people, who relied on it, appreciated it, and could also do it in their own domains. But the general public, I didn't realize how deficient the general public is in terms of faculties of model-based reasoning, especially politicians. They're really pathetic.
Yeah, yes, I agree. I also wonder though, how much of us being tr how much of our curiosity being stifled early on adds to that. I mean, I think both are true. I think there are some that are not capable and they don't do it, but I also think there are some that are capable,
They,
but they've
they
been
don't,
taught not to take a chance at being wrong. So how do you develop a model if you don't, throw out those predictions and see what comes back and, experiment a little bit?
yeah, they don't teach it. The only popular culture element where you can develop the faculty of model-based reasoning is in certain kinds of games. There are certain kinds of games, especially discovery games or sequential discovery games, where you can develop the faculty of model-based reasoning in a synthetic world where it doesn't matter if you're wrong, you just don't solve the problem, you don't figure out the pattern.
Well, I'm sorry, but I just want to catch you because you just said something where it doesn't matter if you're wrong. That specifically feeds into what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. So where it matters is like if you want to, like if your car breaks down and you need to know what to do to fix it, or some appliance breaks down, most people will simply say it doesn't work. They'll bring it in, and the technician will say, "What's the symptom?" And they'll say it doesn't work. The symptom is it doesn't work. I mean, they can't even give you, a reasonable analysis of the symptoms, and so you've got to basically go through a battery of tests to figure out what component is not working. It's kind of sad. It also means that people like that, can make a living, but it's not a very satisfying living because it's mostly it's doing pretty banal thinking. I mean, the really hard problems are challenging. They're often not economically worth it if it's just some random household appliance. People just throw it away because there aren't very many ways to get things fixed at a reasonable cost, except places like the Fix-It Shop, which not every town has anything like that. People throw away a 5-year-old computer because something hard drive dies or memory dies or battery dies. Let's throw it away because diagnosing it and repairing it is just more trouble than it's worth for a few $100s.
Okay, Sam, we're ready.
Sam's not ready. I'm not sure what he's probably trying to make some coffee or pee or something like that.
Well, he said he was waiting for us to finish, so.
Well, I mean, how much? Oh, there he is.
Actually, the problem now is I discover my refrigerator is peeing on the floor, so I've been gathering towels and mopping up the refrigerator
Oh,
pee.
God, that's terrible.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Anyway, so here's a refrigerator. Here's a bunch of towels that I've been went all the way out to there. So I'm still a little bit distracted.
That sounds like it's the ice maker or water dispenser that's leaking
Yep.
because defrosting can't generate that much moisture.
Yep. Oh, by the way, Barry, on your point about people throwing stuff away when it doesn't work,
Yeah.
I was thinking about throwing this refrigerator away, but now you're compelling me to figure out why it doesn't work.
First of
Well,
all, go downstairs and find the water feed and turn
thank
off the
you.
water feed to it. Because if you don't have automatic ice and automatic water, it's not the end of the world. My
Yeah.
refrigerator doesn't have that feature. I have to fill my ice cube trays by
Yeah.
hand. So just if you
Yeah.
turn off the water feed, then you can deal with it at your leisure.
Yeah.
Doesn't
Actually,
matter.
this water feed has never been hooked up, so I think it's worse. I think it's the actual ice in the freezer, which
Oh,
means
well,
it's not freezing. So,
oh,
yeah.
well, maybe it's not. Maybe the defrost. Well, the defrost cycle got stuck on, but you can only defrost so much.
No, it's not. Again, this is a refrigerator that hasn't been used for 2 years, and so I just recently came back, and so it's aged not well.
Oh, you're not even using it normally.
Yeah,
I'll just unplug it for now
yeah, that's that's what I did.
and turn off the water feed if it has one.
Yeah, it's already been turned off years ago. Yeah. Anyway, so that's a small distraction.
Yeah, you can diagnose that at your leisure since you don't actually need that refrigerator.
Right.
Ugh. But yeah, I mean, things go dysfunctional and they're too challenging to deal with.
So on the same point, I believe, if I'm correct, that the country of Sweden now essentially made it illegal to throw things away. Sweden says now you got to fix things instead of throw things away. I like that.
Yeah, that means you have to be able to get parts. A lot of stuff you can't get parts for anymore because
Right. You
something's
have to
more than
then
about eight.
manufacture for maintainability.
If something's more than about 8 years old, good luck finding parts. Sometimes you can fabricate parts, but that's takes a lot of artisanship often.
Right. But then that's a whole new industry for people.
Yeah, but it's artsy craftsy, and either people do it as a volunteer or
And
it's
it doesn't have to be though. Look at this. I mean, there could be 3D printers everywhere where people could have their own. You got 3D printer shops, and then the open source, the designs. You say, I need this refrigerator part. You go into one of these shops, you print it out, you pay your $50 or $30 or whatever it is. All of a sudden, you don't need sitting inventory, for most things, and you got to repair, or at least a
Yeah.
part.
But often parts are oddly shaped and you don't have the CAD design to make one. And so trying to generate the CAD design, that's really, really hardcore technology to
Yeah,
generate the shape of an oddball shaped piece.
right, right. Well, step by step.
And often that 3D printer stuff is not very sturdy. It's rather soft plastic and doesn't really
Right,
have any physical strength in most cases
right.
where needed.
Yeah, but you could be, let's say, printing the molding and then actually making something with the molding as well.
But you still need the CAD for the molding.
Well, that's what I mean but your first initial objection was this stuff isn't strong enough. So I'm just saying you could still use the
Oh,
moldable part to actually create a mold.
yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm
But
still waking up.
but a lot of times it's just so much and the error rate is so high. The time and expense and error rate just make it unrealistic unless you're an expert at that particular niche, which almost nobody is.
And worse, if it's a really old refrigerator, who knows if the user manuals are still around or the
That
company itself, right?
that I find you can generally find user manuals online. There are a lot of archive sites that have user manuals, and
Yeah, manuals.lib, I'm familiar with. I've gotten lots of manuals from there. But they will have the user manual. They don't necessarily have the engineering
yeah,
diagrams.
yeah, they'll tell you how to use it. So if you want to know, what's the user interface, you're in luck. But if you want to know,
Yeah.
you know, what do you call a part, or what does a part look like? Forget it.
Anyway, sorry about that distraction. I did come with at least a couple of topics, and sorry I'm late on that. So at any time, let me know when I can
Uh,
suggest one of those topics.
Stacey, are you and I done with chit chat?
Yes, I am done with chit chat and I'm back. Go ahead, Sam.
Okay. Well, I think we have a live one. I had posted something about Trump, as I often do, and I got a fellow named Daniel Postle, Postle, not sure I'm pronouncing it right. And he says, well, for darn sure, he's a lot better than the alternative. So
He who?
I,
Trump?
yeah, Trump is way better than the alternative, which, according to him, is Kamala, which was fair because that's who we had in the last election. So I let that sit for a day. And then I responded and said, so what's better about turning the entire world against us? What's better about creating a tariff wall that makes every country, decide that we're no longer their best friend? What's better about the Supreme Court that's corrupt? So I go down this list. I don't go through my entire list, but I do a small list. And then he says, "Oh, I'd be happy to do so." So he goes on. To his credit, he does respond. Okay, so he gives me probably, I don't know, 3 or 4 paragraphs worth of stuff, but he doesn't use punctuation, so it's always just one big run-on paragraph. So I guess evidently you guys didn't see that post. So then I let that wait for a day, and then he says, "Well," or something like that. He says he's waiting for my response. So I said, furthermore, in his first response, he said something like, and if you don't think that Trump is better than Kamala, then you must be, I don't remember his exact words, but he said, you must be unintelligent or really dumb or some words to that effect. Okay. So I let that wait. And then I said, well, since you believe that I am not capable or I might be biased or I forget what words I used, I fed it to Perplexity. I fed his response to Perplexity. And then Perplexity identified where, facts countered his points. It identified where facts actually kind of supported his points, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I took those 5 points that Perplexity gave me, I pasted them into the dialogue. Now that was yesterday. So I just woke up. So I don't know whether or not he's actually seen that. but I'm just curious because for a Trumper to be this engaged, I think is actually a good thing. So I'm waiting to see his response. But anyway, that was just one thing I thought was curious because for years I've been looking for someone to actually engage, in hand-to-hand, word-to-word combat on these topics, and I rarely find any who will stick around more than one or two exchanges. And the first couple will typically be, well, this is true, this is true, this is true. And then I say, where do you get that? Then it's Fox News or Breitbart. And then I produce a whole bunch of other countering evidence, and then they disappear, or they call me names, or they tell me I'm stupid. So that's the typical pattern. But this was in writing, so it's actually for the entire world to see. Anyway, if when I get to my machine, I will send the link if this is of interest to you. On the other hand, I do recognize it's a tired old subject. But I thought it was interesting that someone from the other side wanted to engage. Over.
Have you ever seen or heard anybody use the acronym TWOT?
No,
Anybody
not me
know?
personally.
You know what it stands for?
Nope.
Total waste of time. And the person
No.
who I first heard ever use that was only 8 years old. And he was a math genius who happened to be mentoring at BBN. And he would classify a lot of nonsense as, he called it twat, total waste of time.
Hmm.
And it was, it was a pretty good insight because a lot of stuff was a total waste of time. It's just, you're just going to literally spend a lot of time going around in circles and getting nowhere. And if you can recognize that at the outset, why bother? Why
No,
get,
in fact, I have recognized that, way before. I've said that. I said that my intent in engaging is not necessarily to convince the other person. My intent is twofold. One, see whether or not I actually have any kind of sound basis, or is there something that this person could teach me that says I'm missing something? Okay. Number two is for the bystanders. Now, this is really interesting to me because the whole thing about Germany is there are too many bystanders, and bystanders didn't do enough.
yeah.
So I'm not expecting to change his view. I'm wondering what the bystanders will do, and I'm also wondering what I'm missing.
I
And I
can tell you
think
what I'm
those are
missing.
worth what?
I can tell you what I'm missing. I'm an educator.
Interest.
I'm an educator, have
Mhm.
lifelong educator, and I have discovered that there are some people, some demographics, which are simply uneducable, so-called the great unwashed masses. And when you come across somebody who is manifestly uneducable, it's a waste of time to try to educate them.
But I think what comes out of their mouth is still revealing.
It
It
reveals
doesn't
that they're
necessarily have to
uneducable.
make what?
It reveals that what you're learning from what comes out of their mouth is that they
Right.
are manifestly uneducable
That's
by an
okay.
educator of the likes of us.
Right. I can grant you that point. But my point is, how did this person get to be that way?
That's a good
What did
question.
this person's environment, do to him or her so that this person ended up not willing to look at new information or not willing to look at information critically or not willing to blah, 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 anything having to do with, social and personal education slash enlightenment.
What was their early life trauma,
Exactly.
which they probably can't articulate, even if they happen to know it, they probably can't put it into words. But generally speaking, it's some early life trauma that made them the way they are, and they can't diagnose or reveal it. And it would take a world-class psychologist to eke it out of them.
So for those two purposes, I do think it's worthwhile to engage at least to a point. Okay. Now, if I'm pissing everybody off by engaging, that tells me something else. But I don't think I'm there yet. I'm just waiting for anyone else to even notice that this is happening.
Well, I've noticed not this particular case, but I've always noticed, or a long time noticed, that there are some people who simply are uneducable. And if that's the case, and that's the diagnosis, then don't waste your time trying to educate them. You're
Right.
pushing, it's Sisyphus pushing the stone up the hill. It's just.
But
Does it?
Barry, if that were 1 or 2 or 5% of the population, I'd say, right, fine. Society's fine. Don't waste your time. Let's go figure this out. But to me, it looks like it's more like 40 or 45%, maybe even 49%
It
of the
depends on the
entire United
discipline. In
States.
some disciplines, it's a small number. In other disciplines, it's a large number. And some disciplines are really, really hard to. I mean, deep reasoning, model-based reasoning, sense system thinking, that very, very few people are capable of learning, even with lots and lots of attention and education. And so if somebody simply doesn't have the aptitude for analytical thinking, and some people don't, you're just never going to get to it. It's more work than, it's more effort than it's worth for, minimal returns.
Yeah, we've had this point circulate before.
Yeah.
I do think, though, that they don't need to come to the table with all of those skills. They just need to come to the table with at least an ability to reason and at least a willingness to engage.
Or to say, it's broken, can you fix it for me? Because even if you show them how to fix it, the next time it breaks, they don't remember. They can't learn the fix even if it's a recurring problem. Every time it breaks, you have to fix it for them. And I know people like that. There are people like that. They're perfectly fine people. They simply don't have the aptitude to learn how to fix the thing, even though they've seen it happen before. They simply know who to ask.
When it comes to fixing machines, that's okay because there's no damage being done to society if that takes a little bit of time. I'm talking about this greater social phenomenon where we continue to put in corrupt people into government, um stupid people, and just cronies and loyalists into positions of authority, having zero regard for the Constitution or its derivatives. That's a much bigger social impact slash damage.
And I don't know how to fix that. I don't know how to fix a stupid population. Neither did Socrates. Socrates says you're going to have stupid people voting, and they're going to make stupid decisions in voting. And he didn't know how to fix that.
Well, that's why I am basically claiming, in a very unpopular stance, that not everybody deserves the right to vote. And I get a lot of pushback, even here,
Oh,
on
yeah.
that.
Well, that's the whole point of democracy. Socrates says democracy has a fatal flaw, and that's the fatal flaw. And if you believe in democracy, you're going to have to live with this fatal flaw of people voting for idiots to run the government
That's right.
from time to time.
That's right.
Charlatans. You're going to end up voting for charlatans, and it's what happened.
Yep.
I mean, there's a lot of dysphoria going around because of the phenomenon that here we have a country where we have free public education, had it for a century and a half, and people are voting for charlatans.
Well, how about this? I mean, this is a fantasy. It's never going to work. It's just, some loose thinking here. But if we made transportation so cheap that all the MAGAs would basically flock to Florida and we just give them Florida, and I've said this before, right? And let them take care of their own economy, their own government, their own education system, their own electricity grill, their own food production, their own water purification, their own scientific research or lack of it, their own police state, et cetera, et cetera. Let's just give them Florida. And let's just have at it. Let them just do their thing. In fact, I even raise money to pay for the transportation for people to go there, as I did for this guy in Michigan to take a bus trip down to Florida. So then they would get to flock with their own kind. They would get their own, echo chamber. And I think the rest of the country would be better off. Likewise, we should be able to take those who actually believe differently, like California, Oregon, Washington, and just say, okay, we're part of Canada now. We're part of this new thing called Cascadia. We don't subscribe to your version, Republican with KKK version of government. So we're going to take our net production, we're going to take our science, we're going to take our education system, our citizenry, and we're going to join up with Canada. Have at it. Be happy. Yeah, I know it's a fantasy.
Also, there's a lot of phenomena that don't respect political borders. You know, if people come down with diseases in Texas or Florida or whatever, those disease agents don't respect the borders. They're going to drift across and infect the the neighboring states and you know
Sure, but just like they don't let pregnant women, travel across state borders, maybe we could do something about not letting sick people cross into Canada slash Cascadia.
but a lot of phenomena don't respect political borders. Sorry.
Hey, it's a step forward in a sense.
Or maybe a step sideways. Just simply delays the rate of onset of the rotten apple. The rotten apple eventually infects the neighboring apples and it
It's
spreads.
better than doing nothing and letting those idiots, control the outcomes.
Classically, in every generation, even going back to biblical times, there were prophets who could do model-based reasoning, intuitively, not analytically, but they could see the omens of practices, unsustainable practices, and they would warn about it. And the classical story is the prophet is never listened to, and the thing that they prophesy comes true and is a disaster.
Okay. I apologize. I'm on a handheld device. Stacy has had her hand up for quite a while. So sorry, Stacy.
That's okay. I was just typing in my note of departure, which said, just a note to document why I am leaving after having my hand up for so long. We can check how long. I'm not interested in this conversation and don't feel like my input is desired. I'm also not mad. But since you did call on me, I will give you my input, whether it's desired or not, because I desire to speak it. I was going to say that I agree with the idea that it's what was it, TWOT?
Yeah.
And I was going to suggest, Sam, because I have the same like reason, like I understand your reasoning for doing it, and I've been in the same boat. What I would suggest is what I'm doing now, which is to speak to people who you know are local. And the reason I say that is there's been an assumption made, even on this call, that the people are stupid or it's some kind of internal trauma that's happened to them. And I would suggest that it may have more to do with their external reality that's helping to shape their thoughts. And when you connect with someone where you're at least closer in proximity so that people can verify the external, it's easier to, if there is a possibility. With some people, there's no possibility because, as Barry explained, there's an internal trauma and, whatever it is, or they're just dumb, or I don't know what the reason is. But for the group of people where there is hope, and those are the people I think you're trying to reach, especially when you talk about the observers, because at this point, I don't even know that the observers are observing anymore. I mean, I'm not. I don't read anything long. I'll read the first three lines. If I feel like saying something, I'll keep it very short, might insert a question. But the point is, for those people that are good thinkers, that it's hard for us to explain how did they get such a different opinion than me? I find it more helpful to work with people who are local, where there's a greater chance that we're going to at least be looking at the same thing or can more easily point someone to something that they can verify, not through the media, but through what they're actually seeing and experiencing for themselves. So that's what I wanted to say.
Well said.
Thank you.
Yeah, I do apologize again because I didn't have my phone on the gallery view. And So I apologize for not seeing your hand until now.
No, it's okay. And like I said, I really wasn't mad. It was just, I mean, it's a learning, everything that happens on these calls, as far as I'm concerned, is a learning experience.
Yep, I agree with you. Okay, well, I was just indicating that that was an exchange I had, and that's not the only thing that we can talk about, but I got that off my chest.
And actually, I just wanted to put that in the chat
Mhm.
since I had already typed it.
Didn't hear your check-ins, because I was late. Anything else happen?
I'm, I mean, in my life personally, I'm enjoying myself, but as far as politics, because I know you guys are interested, I'm really more concerned with the fact that the mayor of Newark was arrested. He was then released. But how crazy is that? ICE is totally out of control. People in Congress are, I mean, Marjorie Taylor Greene put up a picture of some witness, and I don't remember who the witness was, and it showed one finger as if it were his middle finger to make it look like he was, giving the finger to America or whatever it was. He might have been the soccer a fencing I don't remember which one it was. The point is, she put up a picture where they had cropped out the second finger. So where the guy actually had two fingers up, she put up a picture in a congressional hearing with only one finger, making it look like it was the middle finger. Now, luckily, we have Democrats in Congress now, which I call the new breed of Democrat, because I really do have faith in them. And they had the original picture. So in real time, they were able to hold it up and show it. But that should be like a major scandal. If this were years ago, that would be like a major scandal. Then I saw another one where AOC points out a text going back to like when they tried to make it like there was the Biden crime family. And she holds up the entire context where it's very clear that Hunter, while he was in his addiction, was asking for certain help of how he's going to pay his bills and what he can do, and how they took things out of context. And it's just, again, it goes back to the way things are being communicated, and there's just too much information out there and not enough bipartisan attempts to figure out what's real, what's not, and be fair about that. So that's, again, when I try to connect to people locally, I try to hit on some sort of topic that either has to do with being able to know what's the truth or the fear of having our freedom taken away. Because I know from all the things that I disagreed with on them in the past, even though we disagreed, whether it was about COVID or whatever, we all valued freedom and choice. And so I look for those things that has to do with the possibility that our freedom and choices can be taken away. And that's really scary really, really scary for me, especially I don't even know who ICE is or who makes up ICE. Over.
Brown shirts.
And Kayla's here in case you didn't say. Hi,
Oh,
Kayla.
Kayla.
Yeah. Hey, Kayla. Kayla, Stacey had brought up this issue of the it's Newark mayor who got arrested.
Correct.
Yeah. And then subsequently MTG's falsification of some picture and the Democrats correcting her in real time in Congress. I missed that, by the way. I was not in that loop when that happened.
The one thing good about scrolling YouTube, I mean, it's bad because there's a lot of false, the way they title things is really. I mean, it's just horrible. It can lead you to believe all different kinds of things. But I do like to go to the little snippets of the congressional hearings. Those I find very worthwhile, regardless of how they're phrased. Just being able to watch it for myself, and then if I want, I could search for something longer. To me, that's a great saving of time.
Now, is this Newark mayor able to then file charges that this was unjust search and seizure, violated his fourth?
It just happened yesterday, so I don't know. But the other thing I learned, which I did not realize, that Alina Habba, and for those of you that don't know, she was the one that unsuccessfully defended Trump, is now like the highest legal authority in that state. So she's backing this arrest, which, by the way, my understanding is he was defending a couple of Congress people there who were being manhandled by ICE for wanting to do their right, which is congressional oversight of this private ICE facility.
Ay, ay, ay.
Yes, and it's called Delaney Hall, for the record, if anybody wants it for purposes of research.
It's probably happening more places, and we're just not getting the videos.
Like I said, I'm focused locally, which I think would be a good thing for everybody to do. And then we can come back and discuss what's happening in our local places. And like I said, start from our individual centers and then connect outwards instead of trying to do it the opposite way when it's just too hard to filter out all the unnecessary information.
I think we can do that in parallel.
Yeah,
Because in
that
certain matters, we do have multiple different corroborating sources and evidence. We can act, more regionally or strategically.
but I think like you said, we can do that in parallel. And the thing is, I think that in our local places, we would be able to find people that even if we didn't agree with them, we'd at least find them to be somewhat trustworthy. So if we're doing it kind of with them or parallel to them, we might be able to synthesize something, which is then what we share. Does that make sense?
It's a hopeful position.
If you don't got hope, you don't have anything.
Let me tell you a story about what just happened this past week. It'll take about 1 minute and it'll tie back to this. On Monday, the 5th, Cinco de Mayo, um, I was coming back from a late lunch with two high school classmates around 5:30 or 6 o'clock, something like that. And I couldn't get home because within like 200 or 300 yards of my home, I saw a big operation. There's like 3 or 4 fire engines. It's a lot of fire engines. There's at least 1 or 2 ambulances. Then I found out that the other word for the other kind of vehicle was water tender. There were 4 water tenders that had been sent by various different districts. And it turns out the house almost directly opposite mine, it was like 1 or 2 driveways down. Supposedly, a car engine fire had spread into the garage and then, burned up the left side of the house and caused, fumes that could be seen across this 3 mile or 6 mile sound from the other side, from actually the US mainland. They could actually see the fire and the smoke that far away. So that house was almost 50% damaged. Visually, it looks like it's 40, 50% damaged. And I don't know what the cost of it is. Um, But then I think, well, if the administration had its way, we wouldn't have emergency services. They're going to defund FEMA, for God's sake. And I use God loosely, sorry. They're going to defund emergency services. They're already denying FEMA requests to red states, I've heard. And if that actually happens, and they get more local, as you're suggesting, then I'm going to go talk to them and see if their funds have actually been threatened to be taken away by the Republicans here locally. Just for the record, I've always thought they've been good. So I've always made a donation to them every quarter or every month, I forget. And I've done this for at least, several years because I know these local departments are not well as funded as they want to be. So I've made reasonably significant donations. In fact, that's the place where I make, in absolute dollar terms, the largest dollars of donations in the last several years is that fire department. So I'm glad they exist. I'm glad because I'm very remote and I need those kind of services. But I do it because I know that the administration is thinking about defunding emergency services. And that's my local experience here. Over.
Yeah, so that's like a perfect example of how, so in what I think should happen is publicly you would ask the officials, not coming in like, oh, this guy sucks, which is what I have by me with MAGA Mike Lawler. I would ask have there been funds that have been diverted? Like whatever the question is, if we ask the question locally and publicly without any bias, then we can see what the next step is according. Now, usually the people don't even answer. So then that's one direction you go in, the non-answer. But it seems that in local places, the crowd is getting upset before they've even asked how, if in any way, has this impacted us here, or how will it? Not speculation, but asking for the actual, have you received a letter saying this would be cut? Like what is the up-to-date information? I think we need to start treating our officials as if they work for us, which they do work for us, but we need to maybe address them the way we would an employee.
That's a good suggestion. I had said already that I'm curious about this point, and you say that's a very good action to take as a starting point.
Thank you. Does Kayla want to check in? And maybe she stepped away.
Well, Kayla would have a unique perspective on this because she is in government. She is actually engaging with them on a fairly regular basis. I'd be curious to see whether any of them have gotten these letters that you're talking about.
I don't know about the letters, but I just know anecdotally that I have friends in the county that have lost jobs at like the research facilities, things like that, but I don't have specifics to share or I
Right.
haven't.
And in Southern California, by the way, yes, we're getting into summer. And late summer is typically going to be fire season. So it'll have dire consequences if these moves are in motion.
Well, I have to say I like the way Gavin Newsom's been dealing with the Trump in terms of the media. The Trump. I didn't mean to say it like that. What I meant is I think that, I don't know how I feel about him as a person, so I'm not endorsing him or not endorsing him, but I'm saying that I think that he's addressing the phenomena that is Trump in a positive way by airing commercials on Fox. I like that idea. And he's talking about the economy, which is what those people care most about.
Yeah, I haven't seen those. I'm glad he's doing it. There was something he did not long ago that I thought didn't sound or look right, but I didn't get all the details of it. I think he's definitely positioning himself for 2028. But between him and AOC right now, for the moment, I'm still much more strongly an AOC supporter if
Oh,
she
me.
decides to run.
Yeah, I'm definitely a big fan of hers. And that's why I prefaced by saying I'm not endorsing him and I'm not speaking to how I feel about him. However, that being said, I think he's taking the right actions.
Can I give you a piece of trivia about him?
Sure.
His wife, I believe her name is Jennifer. I met her when Jennifer was 12 years old.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, she's one of four daughters. And the father is Tom Siebel, who's actually a very staunch Republican. He was CEO of Siebel Systems when I worked there. And so I'm curious about this family dynamic. Also, I remember when Schwarzenegger married, what is it?
Maria Shriver.
Exactly. He married into what I believe was a Democrat family, but he is, I think, still a Republican, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. I don't know that that we should read too much into things like that. I mean, both of my parents were Republicans. Um, First of all, Republican meant something different than it does right now.
Yeah.
Um, when it comes to things like money, I have very conservative values in my personal life. I treat my money conservatively. Um, there's a reason we have two parties. The values we need to be able to blend better. That's really the problem. Instead of making this, one side wins, the other side loses, we need to be blending to find solutions that work for everybody.
Well, I think for those reasons, we need to have more than two parties. Two-party systems are too simplistic,
Um,
especially if it's a, winner takes all.
yeah, I'm not. I'm just saying, looking at things the way they are right at this moment. Yes, I hear what you're saying. I'd like to have a third party. First of all, first we got to get the money out of elections.
Yeah.
That's the first thing we need to do.
All right, Stacey, tell us how.
How to get the money out of politics?
Yes.
That we got to work on the MAGA side because they're the ones that are so that they need to see exactly what's happening, and I'm not exactly sure. I think somehow we need to, what I feel like what Trump tapped into, or what certain conspiracy minded people tapped into, is this desire for people who may have felt overlooked to be looked at in a way that they're really the smart ones. So somehow I think we need to lay it out so that they can discover exactly what's been happening. But we have to remove the emotions that make it like a team sport. So it's a complicated answer to your question, but people have to be led to find their own
Oh,
answers.
oh, we think we could do that in time?
I don't know that. I think that's just one of many approaches. I think some of it's happening on its. I am hearing MAGA people. I don't even want to call them MAGA. I will. I think so many people were disengaged, and so you only hear what seeps through in your external reality. And I think now that it's actually affecting people, they are looking. So, yes, time to lay it out again as simply as possible. Again, on social media, I think the best thing to do is ask a question sometimes or respond with something very simple, one step at a time. I'll give you one example. In a local group, they were again trying to defend Mike Lawler and talk about how wonderful he is. He's going to get us back the SALT deduction. And Trump went and endorsed Mike Lawler, saying how hard he's fighting for our SALT deduction. And by the way, this whole thing happened because we had a woman carried out of our town hall that he then went on to defame when she really did nothing wrong, and he's not allowing recordings in the town hall, a whole thing. And so I just asked a question. Well, it was a pointed question, but I said, do people in this group realize that it was Trump's policy that took away our SALT deduction in the first place? So it was asking a question, but it was asking a question about a statement of fact that they would then, if they cared enough, and they probably would care enough, because I know they love to come back and argue with me, they would find that what I said was true. And our elected official who runs the site, even though most people don't know she runs it because she pretends it's a community site, came back and admitted that. And, she was like, I wonder why Biden, whatever. And I was then able to show her to be the liar that she was. But again, staying low, I forgot how I got on this tangent, but it all ties into staying local where people can easily verify things and maybe help them to discover that they're being manipulated. Instead of me saying, "Oh, you're being lied to." I don't know. Have you ever I've been fooled or lied to. And for me, it's much easier when I'm on the quest to discover what's happening and I find it out. Then I'm going to believe it. Whereas if somebody just tells me that, there's going to be a million things in my head saying, oh, well, they don't know the whole story. Over. Hi, Josh.
Oh, Josh is here.
Hello.
Joshua, you feel like being put on the spot because there's something right on the tip of my tongue?
I'm just listening. I'm here listening.
Well, actually, I've been thinking about you, which is why I'm sort of asking for permission. But um, just to fill the rest of the group in, a while back, I had posted a woman being carried out of an Idaho town hall. And Joshua contacted me that, how am I believing this stuff? And Josh, I just want to share with you, in case you haven't heard, that 2 weeks ago, somebody that I have lots of friends that know her. I don't know her personally, but I have many friends that know her. She's well known in our community. She was carried out, literally carried out of a town hall, um, which actually is causing a big scandal. So maybe you've heard of it, maybe you haven't. Going back to the original Idaho town hall, 5 men were arrested. So what they did was really wrong. And I just want to state for the record that I knew exactly what I was doing by trying to warn people about this. It was not a staged event, as many MAGAs tried to make it like it was. Over.
So, what was the backstory?
To which?
Why did she get? What was she doing
New
that made
York?
her get? What was
The
she
one in
doing?
The
Yeah.
one in New York, and I could send you, I have the exact question and the videos, and you could look on my page. There's probably a lot of information there from people adding to it. So we finally got Mike Lawler to have a town hall. For a long time, he refused. We were protesting for him to have a town hall. He would only do a televised one. Then put dates for town halls, but the tickets were all gone when you tried to get them. But anyway, so this is the second town hall, and it was in Westchester. Nobody was allowed to record unless you were registered with the media. So when it was her turn, she asked a question and it's recorded. She's very calm. And she basically asked him what his red line in the sand was regarding, I don't remember the exact words, but she was speaking to Trump doing all these unconstitutional things and what would be the red line in the sand before he said or did something. And he went on to answer, and he did not talk anything about what she had asked. And she said, answer the question. Then she sat down. We don't have any other video of that. I'm sure the media does. I haven't seen any, and I looked a lot. And then you see, first they asked her to leave. She said, "I'm not leaving." And then, again, she was like, "I'm not leaving. I have every right to be here." But if I tell you she was so calm that another MAGA suggested, "Oh, she was so calm, this had to be a setup." So I said, "Well, you're saying she was so calm it had to be a setup, then how can you also say she was so disruptive that she had to be thrown out?" I mean, it doesn't make sense. Basically, they were sending a message.
Uh, I don't know. I'll watch the documentary when it comes out. I have no idea
You don't
what's
even
real
have to
anymore.
watch the documentary. There's enough recordings on Facebook that you could find all the different
I watched
angles
it. I watched the recordings. I made my own opinion, but
on the New York case,
I don't know which ones you're talking. I
the one
don't.
that just
How many
happened,
are there now?
the one that
This
happened
was a
2 weeks.
different one. No, this was not
Emily
New York.
Finer. I'm
I
speaking
don't
about.
know.
Okay.
Did you, speaking on cases, did you see the one with Palantir that happened recently?
No, I don't even know who that is. Like I was telling in the beginning of the call, I said that I think it would behoove us all to work locally and to really pay attention locally and then come back and share our findings.
No, it was just the funniest thing I've ever seen where the lady stands up in front of a keynote speech and yells at the guy from Palantir, "You're killing people in Palestine." And she's yelling at him and she asks him a question and he goes, can I answer your question? And she goes, yeah, go ahead. Like she didn't expect him to actually answer the question. It was just very interesting. It'd be fun to listen to that all together and see what everyone's take is. But I think a lot of people are trying to test and see where the red line is. I think that's a very important thing. I think that's wonderful. I think people should find out if their rights are being eroded or if they've already been eroded from legal things that have taken place back in 2011 when we had the Occupy movement. But it's interesting that now people want to check and see if their rights are being eroded when they were being eroded for the last 50 years.
Well, did you see yesterday the Newark mayor was arrested as he was trying to defend two of the Congress people that were being manhandled by ICE as they tried to do their oversight of a private ICE facility?
I did not. I'm not following politics.
I mean, these are things, whatever happened in 2011, you can't go back, I think we need to deal with what's happening right now in this moment. And I think that when people see women being carried out of
I
town
watched a lot of
halls,
women being carried out.
you may have, but the general population has not. I
Nope, they were all
certainly,
asleep at the wheel.
so I can't dwell on that. I can only be where I am now.
Yep. I watched grandmas get spit on and I watched the whole thing happen in front of my face.
Just for the record, I did see the Palantir event that Josh is talking about. And the woman did ask, and the guy was interrupted as he was trying to respond. It was a very short clip, so I don't know what happened after that. She was quite
Oh,
loud.
you didn't see the thing afterwards, Sam?
No, I only saw like a few seconds of that talk and of that event.
Isn't it interesting how everything's siloed? That's why I don't like having conversation with people because we're not all getting the same information.
No, that is the reason to have conversation with people so we can make sure that we're accessing, different modes of communication.
Okay, well, there's a lot more to that clip. If you want to watch it, you can just go see the whole thing.
So did he respond
Yeah,
or
he
was
did.
she carried out?
He had a response, and the other gentleman had a response afterwards.
So I have a question, Josh. With everything that you saw, which I assume disgusted you, I would hope, I mean, I'm guessing that that you were horrified to see like women spit on or whatever.
I
Why
don't know
did
which one you're talking about.
you
The,
you had
the
said
one was
that
in
during
Idaho.
Occupy? No, yeah.
Oh,
Let
in
me start
Occupy, you
over.
mean? Oh, okay. Yeah. Which
My
case are we talking about? That's what I didn't know.
Yes. Going back, so my assumption is that having seen everything you saw with the Occupy movement, that I'm guessing you would have hoped that people were paying more attention and stop that. Is that so far, is that true?
Yeah, this happened right after the Arab Spring as well.
Okay. But here's my question. If that bothered you so much, then why did it bother you when I was calling attention to it with the Idaho thing? And why did you try to get me to dismiss it as just, a show?
Yeah, Stacey. So what happened was after that movement of the Arab Spring and everything that happened over in the Middle East, and then it came over to America, and then it went over to England, and all these things were happening for years. And I was trying to bring attention to it, and nobody cared.
So why, when I'm bringing attention to it, did you care enough to try and get me to stop? That's my question.
What I'm trying to tell you is because I'm not fighting that fight anymore. I don't know what's real or what's not real anymore. I'm not there on the ground. I don't know.
But again, you took the time to reach out to me personally and privately to tell me
No,
that,
no, you took the time to
oh,
stir me up and ask me what I thought of something. And I said, I don't know. I'll look into it. And when I looked into it, the information that I got was completely different than the information you had on that specific case.
okay, I had posted something on my page, but okay.
Yeah, but also on your page, you're still using Facebook. Zuckerberg is a piece of shit.
He may
That
be, but that's a way that I can reach people that are just going about their daily lives and checking in. And these are like, I
no, you're not
know
reaching them. That's what I'm trying to tell you is
you
they're
have no
literally
idea.
making you fight each other.
You have no idea who I'm reaching in my community. When I go out, what was it? Last week, I was out in the community and somebody walked up to me and like they had this, not somebody I know personally, and their mouth open. They were like, "Oh, I know you," and they thanked me for for everything I'm doing. So they recognized me from Facebook. So that tells me that I'm reaching somebody because there are people that I don't know, but when I go out in public, they know me.
Right. But do you think that your communication with them is unfettered?
That's not an issue for me because I go out of my way to talk to people in person. But what I'm saying is it's a place where I can at least put something up that I know my neighbors, whether they agree with me or not, they're all looking at the same piece of information and they can try to invalidate the information if they want. But either way, I have a group of people, diverse minds that are seeing the same thing. So at least when they give their opinions, we're all looking at the same thing. And I think that's really important.
Yeah, but what about all the people that are not being shown the thing that you want them to be shown and they're being shown something different?
I can't worry about all the other people. I can worry about my neighborhood. And
I,
so if they're being shown
your
something different,
neighborhood's not on Facebook. Just go out in real life. That's all I'm trying to say. I'm glad that you're doing what you're doing. I think your intentions are wonderful, Stacey. I'm just letting you know that that platform has been compromised for a long time.
I am definitely aware that it's been compromised. I think probably know better than probably know better than anyone how well it's been compromised and weaponized. I'm very
Hmm.
aware of that.
Yep. And I don't want it to make us fight, if that makes sense. A compromised platform and the information I'm getting from that platform is different and it's a lie. And then I'm posting the lie. That's not a good thing.
I agree. I totally agree.
And
And
if
what
I'm
is,
getting
go ahead.
information from another platform that's not a lie, and I'm posting that and they're not letting anyone see that because it's not being communicated to people, then that's also a problem. So I can't correct something that if I found a true statement, I can't correct that. I can't show that to everybody.
Well, you can if you join in the conversations that are already ongoing with people that you know, and there are enough people. I mean, a lot of the posts that I comment on, I know at least 50 of the people in real life. So then later, when I see them out, we can continue the conversation about that. So there's at least some, is this really the person I was speaking to? There's some way to verify what's happening.
Okay. I'm glad you have a system for that. I don't. So,
Again, my system, as I said earlier, is just to be very small, just to stay very local. The rest is a waste of time.
gotcha. Well, I don't live locally to you, so I don't see why we would even do that.
I agree.
Yeah. So now you understand why I'm not engaging and why I'm not. I hear you. I love you. I wish you the best. I hope locally, if there's things going on, you're fighting a good fight. I got your back in terms of friendship, but I don't live locally to you. So we have different things going on over here. Does that make sense?
Hmm. On
Okay.
another note, Sam, you'd be interested in this. I spent a lovely 2 hours with Tammy and Harry the other day, so that was really nice.
Was it on the 7th? Because I think the 7th was Tammy's birthday.
It was the following day on the 8th.
Mm, nice.
Yeah, it was. So do we have something else on the agenda?
Well, Josh asked, did that make sense? And to me, I just want to say maybe, because you say that Facebook is compromised. Well, so is Twitter slash X. You can argue whether or not Reddit is, and we can claim the blue sky isn't, although not everybody's made that transition yet. So, what I think is fruitful is to examine all sources and then see if we can actually triangulate what's going on, and not just to say, oh, this source is bad, so therefore, let's get off it. So, in some of these shorts that come up in Facebook, yeah, those are shorts from Fox. I do watch those as well. As Stacey says, she also, no, maybe not Stacey, I think Jack, maybe others. Jack was the one that says he also makes sure that he includes Fox in his sources so he knows, what's being said from both directions. And so I think it's more fruitful to be inclusive and analytical and critical as opposed to just saying, oh, the source is bad, therefore I'm not going to pay any attention to it. Over. Be curious to see how many of us here have a Blue Sky account that they're actually using. I created one, but I'm not actually using it. Are you active on it, Barry?
Not particularly. I mean, I may have posted once or twice since I started it. I wouldn't call myself active. I'm not even terribly active on Facebook anymore compared to, in its heyday. In fact,
I
I'm not.
do notice you do comment on sources and you do bring back old posts from time to time.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there's a little bit of lingering content, but pretty much I'm not active on anything anymore to speak of compared to what I was like 20, 30 years ago.
Anyway, so Josh, Kayla, Stacey, are you guys on Blue
I
Sky
have
or
I have a Blue Sky account, but I don't use it. I don't even know how to use it. Like when I first went on, I didn't even know like how do you find your friends? How do you do this? And then I never bothered because I really don't care. One day
Mhm.
I'll go there when the time is right.
Yeah.
By the way, by the way, Nora Bateson announced that she's leaving Facebook. I don't know if you saw that.
So if we support leaving Facebook in favor of a more, let's say, rational environment, isn't that analogous to leaving Florida, which was talked about earlier, very early on in this session, leaving it to MAGAs and just voting with feet? And with Blue Sky, we're voting with our fingertips. So why not support that as well, in the physical world?
She wants to spend more time in face-to-face meetings with real people and less in the virtual space.
I think that's wise.
Yeah, that's what she wrote a very nice farewell message, which I think she posted 2 or 3 days ago. You can go to her Facebook page and read it. It's a very nice piece.
Thanks, Barry. Yeah, I think times change and the way we communicate, especially with the social media or any kind of online environment. I mean, we've gone through quite a few iterations. I know I've been on it like Barry and Sam, and I think you too, Stacey, and maybe you, Kayla, since the 90s. I was on Yahoo Chat back in the 90s, and I've watched all the evolutions of things changing and iterations and different communities, and it's evolved to a point where I don't know that that community aspect is the goal anymore. I don't know if we're all trying to have community conversations on these social media platforms. I don't think that that's where we're headed. I'd love to be wrong if
It's
someone can
dying.
create that.
It went commercial and it's dying.
Yeah. And we've seen that many, many, many times with
Oh yeah,
many platforms.
yeah.
From GeoCities to MySpace to I was on tribe.net was my favorite one.
AOL,
AOL, sure, I loved AOL back in the day. Loved it.
Delphi,
Yep. ICQ,
IRC.
IRC. Yeah. I think it's a natural evolution of cybernetics.
All of which should be natural from a technology standpoint. But it's interesting that people characterize them from a political standpoint. And I think that's the problem when people say, well, this is turning into an echo chamber, so I'm going to leave. That's unfortunate.
Right. They turned it all political when it didn't start off being political.
Yeah, but politics is important. So the problem
Oh,
is
oh,
not politics itself. It's how do you engage in politics in a civil way as opposed to in a hateful, rantful way.
right. Well, are you allowed to have a conversation where both people are getting the same information? No, we're all getting different information now.
Well, to assume so is fallacious, but to try and verify each piece of information is wise.
I think that's insane at this moment in
I
time.
think that's the only reasonable way.
It's unrealistic. It's way too much stuff to track down. And pretty soon you basically say, I'll take that with a grain of salt because it's too much research to try to validate it, and you just ignore it. It's not important enough to worry about.
Yeah.
If you do, then the people who basically pander alternative facts have won.
I think Western civilization, I think human civilization is basically lost. I think it's a lost cause. To tell you the truth, I hate to say it, but that's where I'm coming out.
I think in the US it has. I'm not sure yet about other countries.
Couldn't tell you about other countries. I think it's a lost cause in this culture, in the US culture. It's a lost cause. It's the Florida phenomenon, as you call it, and Texas, and Alabama. It's a lost cause.
Well, the new evolution, they're spending trillions of dollars to create a memory that we've talked a lot here about having a knowledge repository. And so they'll create a system that is supposedly going to be the correct system that is true reality memory storage, but that'll get compromised. That's why I agree with you, Barry. I think it's a lost cause.
It's certainly beyond, at age 80, it's beyond my ken to make any further contribution that's going to go anywhere. I made many more contributions in the past that didn't pan out that just didn't lead to any improvement. I've run out of steam.
Yeah, I'm fighting a completely different fight, which is creating games, interactions, songs, um, entertainment, edutainment, education, creating little pockets of that. And I don't expect them to be the mainstream or be what everyone agrees is real, but I do expect to be playing educational games with anywhere from, 1,000 to 4,000 people, and that will be my community. So,
Okay. I've been following a new game that got released about a month ago, but the game is so complex and so deep and so challenging that I'm not personally playing it, but I'm watching world-class players play it.
is it good?
Yeah, it's a single person discovery puzzle game, no combat. It's called The Blueprints, which is a homonym of blueprints, and it's complex, it's deep, and been following maybe half a dozen world-class players post their YouTube playtime on it. You can spend hundreds of hours on it and never totally explore everything in the game.
Called The Blueprints?
Yeah, the blue prints, as in royalty prints, but it's also homonym with blueprints, like housing, construction blueprints.
Oh, cool. It came out just April 10th.
Came out about a month ago. Well, there had been a demo version out some months ago, a limited demo version, and then the full version came out. It's very deep, it's very layered. The puzzles range from relatively easy to downright challenging, and lots of layers and depths. Um, and if you want to watch, if you either want to play it, it's on Steam, or if you want to watch people play it, it's on YouTube.
Interesting. Well, thanks, Barry. I'll check it out.
It might be the game of the year, although it's rare for game of the year to be non-violent, non-combat, strictly puzzle exploration, um, discovery learning. But that's this is it's like Myst. It's like that series where there's no combat, and it is a single player exploration game.
Yeah, I'm watching all these large language models create new type of reinforcement learning where they're not being reinforced by humans. The systems are being reinforced.
Mhm.
So it seems that it's just a matter of time before the system is just in a feedback loop with itself.
Yeah, yeah. It is easy to go down a rabbit hole in these feedback loops and get trapped in a rabbit hole that's a dead end, and that takes forever to figure that out.
That's where I think we are politically at this moment in time.
Western civilization went down a huge rabbit hole. It's spent 6,000 years going down a rabbit hole that it can't get out of.
Yep, the Council of Nicaea.
And there's a tiny niche, maybe a fraction of 1%, who conceded a way out of the rabbit hole, and they're sort of off in nerd land, systems theory land. But we're such a tiny demographic that we have no influence on the great unwashed masses.
Or neither should we.
Well, I mean, if we're going to save Western civilization, that was the whole idea: is save your culture. And there are people who believe in a savior culture, but they can't seem to wrap their head around what it really adds up to.
Yeah, I'd like to go. I've been talking to like Dig Vijay, who used to come on here from India,
Yeah,
and you see what's going on in India right now. Their culture is evolving, and it's been evolving for a long time. It's an old.
yeah.
And I was just learning about the older battles they had. You know, we're talking about like Alexander the Great type of battles and Shivaji, and I'm just saying they've been dealing with this kind of stuff. They're a lot older than Western civilization. I think if anyone's going to save the world, it's going to be an older culture that has better understanding and has been through this already.
Well, there was the animism of 10,000 years ago, Native American and stuff like that, and hunter-gatherer culture, but they all kind of fell by the wayside with the agrarian culture between 12 and 6,000 years ago. And we're just sort of stuck in this problematic paradigm that we can't seem to evolve out of.
Do you think maybe we'll discover the cultures from before 12,000 years ago?
Well, there are culture anthropologists who can write about it, but they have very small audiences.
Yeah, I've been following a gentleman in Turkey that's doing some really interesting archival type of work, and there's lost civilizations that they're trying to bring to the surface, but they're too deep inside of lakes and different places that are hard to, really excavate properly. So maybe some generations further, they'll either be found or not, but it'll be interesting.
Anyhow, I don't expect to live long enough to see us pull out of it. I'll probably die before there's even an inflection point.
Well, I think they'll create a story, if not many, many, many stories, and everyone gets to follow all these different stories.
Yeah.
That's the future I see coming very quickly. If you think we're fractioned off now, just wait another 4 years, we'll be even more fractioned off. So I don't see any coming together at this moment in time, especially in the West. Maybe in China. Maybe we can all move to China. I don't know what's going to happen over there.
Or Taiwan.
Or yeah, we'll see what happens. They what did they say? 10 years? There's something's going to happen in Taiwan.
Yeah, well,
What's the latest, Sam?
There's no reason it couldn't be any moment.
Yeah,
But, for China to take Taiwan, I've looked into this. It's not as trivial as, oh, China's got 1.5 billion people and Taiwan's only got 23 million. It's not that simple.
it never is.
Because even if the US falls by the wayside, there's still, at least for the moment, Japan, South Korea, New Zealand, Australia, Vietnam,
Canada,
Canada.
Costa Rica.
I'm talking about people who might actually, engage with China should they invade Taiwan.
Oh, that I couldn't tell you.
Well, I hope we figure it out soon, and there's not as much suffering as needs to be. That's the prayer I'm giving to the world is we figure out ways to treat each other better.
I mean, I have, people of faith who pray that we pull out of this, but we're not pulling out of it.
So what are they saying? Pray harder, pray longer.
Just keep repeating the same prayerful hopes that people wake up and become enlightened. I mean, we've had enlightenment phases before, and right now we're in the new dark ages. So there you have it. Maybe the voting public will become enlightened and vote out these doofuses, but maybe and maybe not. And
See,
maybe,
I think that there's little chance that that'll happen so long as people don't wake up until they're personally affected.
yeah,
Like,
well,
oh, I lost my job, therefore I'm finally realizing that's not what I voted for. See,
or I
people
can't,
don't realize that was happening to everybody else, but they didn't care when it happened to everybody else. And they
or
only care when it happens to them.
or even you still have a job, but you can't afford the cost of living anymore.
And in the meantime, your parents are losing their Social Security. That's going to come under fire now.
Yeah.
It's already been widely surmised before the election and confirmed in recent weeks.
Well, if Social Security goes under, then there'll be pretty much what's the word? Insurrection, I suppose you'll have to call it. Um,
We keep saying that about everything that he's done, and yet there is no insurrection.
Not yet, and maybe there won't be. Maybe we'll just, collapse like Germany collapsed, or like fascist Italy collapsed.
Yep, because people don't care until it happens to them, and then it's too late.
Yeah, and it may happen that our species just doesn't have enough insight, enough wisdom, um, enough chutzpah to save itself,
In which case, we should blow ourselves up.
or just die out. I mean, a lot of species go extinct, and there's no reason why we might not also go extinct.
And we're going
Could
that
very
way.
well happen. And we've discontinued research, which means medical research and technological research and all kinds of research are going to be suspended, and we're not going to have solutions waiting to solve the problems as they emerge.
Well, at least for a time being, it might happen in other countries.
Yeah, maybe some countries in Europe or maybe some countries in Asia will figure it out, or who knows.
Well, China is doing a lot more in LLMs and GPTs and machine learning now than the US is. So
Yeah.
they've already surpassed us there.
Is that
And
true?
Europe is doing more. Yeah, I mean, many of the wide notables, even Altman was on the interview this week saying he's pretty much acknowledged that.
I'm saying, like, who's the leader now in the world? I know France has their own, and China's got their own. Like, are there new ones coming up? Are there new countries doing work? Or, in other words, can we see the whole picture of who's doing what where in the world?
Maybe somebody can see it. I can't.
I can't see it.
I no longer have the brain power to process that broad a scope of vague information.
So for
Feels
the
like the
moment,
Cold War. Oh, God. So,
of the big three, I think the big three are quantum physics, quantum computing, and machine learning for now. I don't see anybody moving, mountains yet in materials science. But in the big three, the only one that the US appears, and it's only Google, to have a lead in might be quantum computing. But in particle physics, I think that's always been Europe now for at least 2 or 3 decades, maybe longer. And up until just a couple of years ago, in machine learning, it was still the US. But now China's gotten much deeper and interesting results lately.
and who's leading in America in material science? Like, which
Like
universities?
I say, like I say, nobody. I can't see anybody making really significant improvement. But I do think that's really an interesting fourth area that's yet to emerge.
Yeah, because I know Dick Vijay is working in material science over in, he just went to one university and left and went to another, two different universities in India. But I'm not following the material science in America, so I don't know what they're doing.
I mean, up until recently, it was all about batteries, but
I
there's
think
a
it
lot
still
more
is.
applications.
I think money-wise, it's still about batteries. I think that's the big mover shaker right now.
We might make a breakthrough in energy technology possibly in my lifetime, but you know, who knows?
Yeah, I'm interested in the technology of manufacturing because it seems like there's huge breakthroughs that need to happen in that sector where
Yeah,
they're creating the factories that create the factories, if that makes sense. Like
we ha- we haven't even done any better than photosynthesis in terms of capturing solar photons. Photosynthesis is still ahead of anything in technology for solar photo photon capture.
yeah, I've been using the new solar panels that have just come out that are supposed to be 27% more energy efficient, and they're definitely different, but they're not.
efficient wise, you got to be in the direct sun. You got to point them right at the right time, right into the sun. And I think the big technology is the gimbal that you mount them on that moves them.
Yeah.
They're very efficient when you move them at the right time of day, at the right angle to the sun. There's like I get 80, 90% efficiency on the panel.
Yeah. But if you put them on your rooftop, then you can't gimbal them. They're just fixed angle.
Exactly. That's the to me the field to work in is like something that looks like a flower or like a sunflower.
Yeah.
So it's a rotating gimbal that looks pretty, like artistically, that has solar panels that opens up during the day and closes at night.
Anyhow, they'll work on it, but I'm not holding my breath waiting for a breakthrough.
Yeah. Well, I just got new for $25. They line your pathway, those solar lights,
Yeah.
and they're 50 deep, 50 lumens. And then when motion detected, they're 5,000 lumens.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool LED solar lights that you can put around your backyard.
Yeah. They only live for about 5 years. At least the current ones tend to start going, dysfunctional after about 5 years.
Yeah, but you can change out the LEDs and you can change out the sensors.
Just throw away the old ones and buy new ones.
You do that too.
Unless you're in
Repurpose
Sweden.
it. Yeah. Or you can make it out of materials that you upcycle. I think that's another possibility instead of throwing it out,
Yeah.
turn it into a fence.
Hmm.
I think everything looks pretty dire and grim at the moment, but that's because we haven't gone through our transitional change. And I don't think American values and Western values are the future of values.
No.
On that, I agree.
And if we embrace that, we can get closer to something that might work for a larger percentage of people. And what that looks like, I don't think we've created it yet.
We had for too long a me, I culture.
Hmm.
And that is still poisoning, what could be done from a social basis. That's created nuclear families, whereas many other countries are intergenerational, multi-generational. And we've created a welfare state where individuals need welfare and subsistence from the government because they don't have that multi-generational support. That network has been long abandoned for too many families.
What's the other possibility if you don't have multi-generational support and you don't have government support? What is the other option? Meaning to,
I think it's
yeah,
the village model. Small villages that support each other, recognize when someone's hurting, recognize when, someone has a little bit extra set of beans and they can share their beans with somebody else. That village model used to work for generations.
would it
We've
still
abandoned
work?
that because all the beans now have been snapped up by people who put all their beans into these huge silos offshore,
Right.
aka billionaires. So the people left in the village are fighting over 5 beans when all the billionaires have, 14 billion beans.
I've been looking at the map on America just randomly. It's my new hobby is just to go into little 6,000 person towns and go on their website and look at their, why come to that city for what opportunity, what's the culture, what's the business opportunities. And it's really interesting. I don't know if any of you guys have done that.
I've been looking into small villages and small islands outside the US.
Nice. I just think the opportunities are plentiful because there's millions of these small little villages all throughout the world, literally millions.
There are places in Japan that'll give you homes as long as you agree to live there for 10, 15 years and, upkeep them. Similarly, there are small towns in Spain or even Switzerland that'll let you
Mhm.
do similar,
I have friends that have done
surprisingly.
that. Yep.
And in Japan, it's a real thing. There are millions of these homes just waiting to be taken care of by someone who wants to, because they ain't making babies anymore.
Not enough.
Well, that's why Elon himself has said his responsibility is to create more white babies,
Why did
and
you
he's
say
taken that
white
as a
babies?
mission because that's what he cares about.
There's no gray babies or brown babies or mahogany babies or
There are many, but
chocolate babies.
he's manufacturing white babies.
Interesting. I did not know that.
I mean, there's
Well,
14 kids, according to documented cases, but the way he's behaved, I suspect there's many more.
there are probably a few more than the 14 that we know about.
That's what I suspect.
Not that it matters one way or the other.
Well, it matters because his politics is underlying a lot of the, chainsaw actions that he's taking in government.
He ended up taking a chainsaw to his own companies because he was letting them operate without oversight.
And you see there the lack of systemic thinking.
Well, yeah, he got hung up on the power of, without any basis for running the government. He ends up dismantling the infrastructure of the federal government.
And there's no one with enough power in government to say, hey, you are not officially appointed. We never confirmed you. You don't have this authority. You can't have access to those set of passwords. Stand down. In
Yeah,
fact, all of that was ineffective. The only thing that was effective was the Tesla board saying, get over here, do your job, or just go and, resign and we'll find somebody else.
yeah,
And of course, a lot of his wealth is all tied up in Tesla stock
you know.
because SpaceX ain't IPO yet.
Are they planning to IPO? I didn't hear that.
SpaceX,
That's
I think, has not gone IPO yet.
I don't
probably
think it
won't.
ever was planning to.
I think it is. They're already trying to do so, but it hasn't yet.
Oh, interesting.
I've been offered pre-IPO SpaceX shares.
Like a SPAC?
I didn't
Mm.
follow up on it.
Was that real? I'm just saying, let me know. I'll get in on that one.
And it's probably easy to find that search. And it's been more than one source. It's been happening for a couple of years.
No, I believe you. It's not in my purview. I think there's a lot of great companies to be created. I don't know. I have a lot of hope in the next generation of kids coming up.
I
Maybe that's
would
just because I
like
have
to
a
see
kid.
them created in a new economy where we're not just measuring quarterly profits. We need more meaningful metrics. Triple bottom line is a good start, but it's not enough.
That's why I was mentioning the game situation. Sam, are you familiar with the latest games for kids? The way they divvy out the money in these games?
No.
They have like multiple forms of intake, if you will. So there's like crystals, then they have food, then they have money, and then they have all sorts of different things to trade or things to gather and use.
And
So
are there
it's
conversions among them?
that's a great question. I don't know. I'm sure some games have different conversion. I think that's the gamified aspect is how they convert and transform.
And do you control the conversion rate or is it fixed in the game? If it's fixed in the game, then to me it's uninteresting. But if you can make that a dynamic, exchange rate, then all of a sudden it turns into something very, very interesting.
Yeah, I think a lot of them, the incentive is just to make money for the game company itself, for the studios. So a
That's what I
lot of it,
suspect.
yeah, and because of that, a lot of it is the advertising trade-off. Like I just figured out how to play Steam games on Macintosh by using NVIDIA's servers, and they had a free version. I said, "Why is this free?" And then I realized, oh, they want to serve me up, 5 minutes of ads before I play.
Yep.
And for me, that's a great trade-off because I can just turn it on and let the ads run and walk away for 5 minutes and come back and I get a free service. But I think the advertising models are just about to explode. At least I come from a marketing and advertising background. And from what I see, this is going to be the heyday of marketing and advertising like no other. The most accurate selling of capitalistic products that has ever occurred, and the most options and places to sell your product that has ever occurred in the history of advertising. In other words, the new ad network that Google's going to create is going to be amazing. It already is on the side of their Gemini stuff.
Hey Josh, if you ever want to do pro bono work, um, or try it out, my
Does that mean work for
organization,
free?
of
What is pro
course,
bono
it means
work? Oh,
work
okay.
for free.
Hey, John, you ever
But
want to work for free? Sure.
for oh yeah, and then we'll give you like a nice tax write-off. But my
Well, I
organization
like
is
that.
looking for marketing. Yeah,
I like tax. If
yeah.
you can figure out a nice tax write-off where I don't have to pay property taxes and all the others, if federal income tax and state taxes and city
Well,
taxes, that would be awesome.
I wouldn't know how to eliminate all of that in a write-off, but I could give you a break.
Hmm. If you could figure that out, yeah, I wish I lived in your county.
Well, you could still do it remote, you know. We could
I
still
don't
do
think that would be
remote stuff.
legal. I'm pretty sure the taxes are going to change. I don't know,
No, no, no. I
but
mean like pro bono work, remote pro bono work.
I don't think you need me anymore, Kayla.
What?
You don't need me.
Um, I need somebody else to do marketing because I can't do everything.
I'm just saying there's systems now called Manus. Have you used Manus yet?
No, I can't I don't want to figure that out. I've got so much on my plate.
No,
Like
I get it.
somebody
It's
else needs to
confusing.
do it. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I don't need to put that in my brain right now. My
I
brain's
got it.
overflowing.
Well, if
Manus
you
is still
ever,
exclusive.
Huh?
You
yeah,
have
but
to you have to be approved for getting into Manus.
I think she has a municipality, right? You work for a municipality, Kayla?
Um, what do you mean?
I
In what
mean,
Government.
context?
do you have an account where you can have your agency pay $200 a month for this marketing thing?
No, unfortunately, we are currently searching for funds, which is why like asking people to do work for free is because the federal government shut down one of our programs. So I have to raise $120,000 in 3 months,
Oh my gosh.
Hey,
and I'm
Kayla,
about
this is
a month
exactly
behind.
well, this is the topic. I don't know if you're here when Stacey and I were talking about it earlier.
Oh,
Um,
sorry, somebody
FEMA,
called
no,
me.
no, 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 wait. FEMA is under threat of being defunded by the current government. You know, they've already
Yeah,
made noises to do so. So I'm wondering, and I asked this because there was a fire across the street just last Monday. I saw four water tenders, two or three fire trucks, one or two ambulances, a bunch of police cars, and I'm thinking, wow, that's an amazing response for a small island of 15,000 people and a house fire just across the street. They were there within minutes. Okay. But I was then thinking to myself, hmm, what would happen if these departments had gotten defunded already? That house, 50% of it is still standing. 50% of it is charred. And if the emergency services had been defunded, as you say, federal government's already cut $120,000 from another program in your district. I'm wondering, this move to defund emergency response teams like FEMA, has it reached the local level? Stacey was saying act locally, right? So that's why I'm asking, what has been the local impact to, let's say, service delivery teams, especially emergency response teams in your district? Over.
Well, um, it just I don't know if I'm articulating this correctly, but the funding for something like a fire comes from several different pots. I do know that FEMA had covered a lot of it for the mountain fire here in Camarillo, um, like a really good percentage of it. And then the state and the county also funded it, as well as some private donations and funding.
Yep,
So yeah, it would have a huge impact if uh, FEMA were to go away. In fact,
that's right.
I was just talking to a friend of mine, a now friend of mine. Ah, I'm so excited. He is um, the, I think, executive director of a search and rescue team that's here. And he had gone to New York for an emergency meeting because of the FEMA thing. So they were talking
Mhm.
about it. He was telling me that he went to New York because they were having a discussion on FEMA and the federal government.
Is
So
this
yeah.
Derek, the good-looking guy?
Oh no, that's not Atticus. Atticus is with
Oh, Atticus.
he's with Senator Bennett's office, and he's really young. This guy is married and he's really cool. We both have a love of the outdoors. We always talk about we go to similar places. So one of
Yeah,
these
see,
days I'm going to ask him if it's okay with his wife that me and my kids tag along. That way
hmm
I could get him into the Delta Sky Club
hmm
because we were just both talking about that. But anyways,
because the reason I ask also is this is May, right? Summer's
yeah.
around the corner, and right there is fire season.
Well, the good
So
news
yeah, go
is
ahead.
here in California, we can. I guess I almost want to say that the fire season doesn't start in May. It starts more like when the wind
Right, right, right.
picks up.
I'm not saying it starts now. I'm saying that summer's going to come. It's going to dry things up, and by late summer, that's fire season, right?
Yes. So we do have an advantage to the misfortune of others. If like the hurricanes, this is like hurricane season now, or it's like, tornado season. So what we're going to do is we're going to see what the response is with federal government during those natural disasters and see it. And I don't know,
Yeah.
take it from there, I guess. So we have some
Well,
time to figure some shit out.
that's why I was saying, hey, California, Oregon, Washington, Canada, we should start getting something going here. That would be a whole lot smarter nation than, what's currently passing for the United States.
Yeah. You just reminded me I'm a month late. I've already asked a private I'm already writing a grant for a private company and I'll be asking the local Ventura County Foundation. We already asked them actually, so I need to write a grant for them. But yeah, we're gonna have to get creative with the funding sources if
Yep.
we had want to, respond the way we've been responding without the help of the federal government. So it sucks, but I mean, I feel like in some ways it kind of has to happen. And I'm not trying to, stick up for this administration at all. But I think people have their heads up their asses and we're so distracted. And now we're being distracted by like some of the shit that Donald Trump is spewing and everyone's fighting over it. Um,
Mhm.
and so I think hopefully this will get more people on board to think logically and systematically to
Yep.
work together so that like it doesn't get worse than it probably will. Am I making sense?
Yeah. I'm basically
So it's
saying,
I'm basically telling everybody you need to fucking get serious, okay?
yeah.
Stop acting like an asshole. Put your money where it matters the most. Stop getting who cares about the Kardashians or what BS Trump is putting on Twitter. You know,
Yep.
secure your future for your children and yourselves. Have some dignity. Have some consideration. Like, I just want to tell everybody to stop get your head out of your ass, figure it out, like use your brain, do something, you know, stop it, stop it.
Yep.
So, anyways, sorry. I know I just jumped in. So I
No,
apologize.
it's good. I asked you a question. You responded. That was exactly as I had asked.
I know it's difficult. It really is. It's hard when only a few people care, but if a lot of people care, like if a lot of people put in the work, it'll make it better. So I had a meeting with my team and I said, look, I am not a marketing specialist at all. I'm not, I don't have any of that training. I don't give a shit about that training, to be honest. Um, because I am not the kind of person that wants to make an enormous amount of money. Obviously, I want to have money, but is that my focus of hoarding money? Absolutely not. As a fundraiser, it's nice because I can make money for a cause. That's always been my MO. I live life the way I want to live it, and I try to be considerate of my neighbors. And so I said, we're going to have to, as a team, pitch in. I mean, I can't make this marketing plan beautiful, but together we all can. Together we could both look at it as something as simple as a flyer. You could put your input, that other person can put their input. Maybe somebody has a creative technique, maybe somebody has an idea like Josh, and we could all make it work. Okay. That's my take on just working together collaboratively as a team. So we don't have to have all these huge resources. We don't have to have a fucking expert. You just put our brains together. Chill out. Like, be accountable. Okay, I'm good at this. I'm good at this. I'm not good at this. Okay, you're good at that. Great. And let's work together for a change.
Thumbs up. Yeah.
Yeah, thumbs up, Kayla. I'm putting my hand up.
I have my phone
I'm
away
trying
from
to.
me.
Oh, sorry. I was going to ask you. There's a question in the Silicon Valley world, which is who's going to be the first person to create like a 5 to 6 person $1 billion company? And that, to me, that's a really interesting question: is who's going to make a small little group of like 20, 30 people that makes amazing stuff with all this technology. It's the first time we could do stuff like that at that level and scale with such a small group.
Just jumping in to say goodbye. Hopefully, I'll see you tomorrow. Have to go. Take care.
Stacey, thank you for fighting the good fight. Keep doing what you're doing. I love your energy. I think your heart is in the right place. I just
All right. I'll see you
doing
tomorrow.
your
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Stace.
local place. You got this.
Oh my gosh, I didn't even know she was there. I feel so bad. Here I am popping off. But it looks like Barry's awake.
Yeah, I'm here.
Well, you guys inspire me. I just want to say that. I don't know if I've said that enough, but I feel inspired by all three of you guys, and over the years, all the conversations we've had, and your community activism. Kayla is inspires me, and I watch what Gisela does with her community stuff, and it's just really inspiring to see people get together. And I don't care if they're doing a bake sale or if they're you know ousting their CEO from the company, whatever it is, as long as people are getting together, talking, organizing, and doing action. I think that's great. That's hard to do. And Barry, you inspired me to get electronics. I now have a soldering iron and a Raspberry Pi and all these electronics. So all your stories over the years, and I even know that gimbal problem that you had with the cameras. You inspired me to try to solve that. So I just solved that recently.
Oh,
How to
wow. Well,
Yeah,
you're
then
you're a better man than I am, Gunga Din.
well, it's not me. It's the tech. Just keeping up on the latest at the NAB show for cameras and stuff. Yeah, they have a new little camera that connects to the gimbal,
Uh,
separate from the other cameras. Uh, subjects and it zooms out got all the new stuff. So, and even the microphones are all new. Like everything you ever asked for is all really cheap now, like under $500 for everything. You can get at least I think it's $30 for the little remote Bluetooth microphones that are really high end and work well.
now, if you only have an audience.
Well, that's the thing. To me, the audience is the easy part.
Oh,
You
well,
just go. Just literally, I've been watching this guy in New York. He just took his system, strapped it around his waist, and walks around the street, and he gets an audience everywhere he goes.
well, okay.
Yep. You can
I have to
literally,
convince Barry.
yeah,
Okay.
Barry, you can strap a speaker to your back and just go into like an area where there's some high traffic in Kendall Square, and you'll get an audience.
I don't know.
I'm not saying you can keep their attention, but you'll grab it for a moment.
For about 2 seconds and then
Yeah.
roll their eyes and move on.
Oh, you got to be interesting.
Well, that's the problem. I'm, I'm not entertaining. I may be technically on target, but I'm not entertaining.
You'd be surprised what you think is not entertaining to other people sometimes is really entertaining.
Yeah, well, maybe.
I'm always surprised at what grabs people. One of my favorite moments was the farmers market in Santa Barbara. I didn't have the ability like to have a speaker system or anything like that. So I just I took what is it called? Those little megaphones, those cones. What are they? You know what I'm talking about? The little cone shaped, literally like a
Megaphone.
piece of paper with a cone.
That's a
What is it?
megaphone.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but it was just a little plastic cone.
yeah. It's a non-amplifying megaphone.
Yeah. So
Ruby Valley megaphone.
I gave it to my friend. He beatboxed through it. I closed my eyes at the farmer's market. We had no one getting attention. I closed my eyes and I just started rapping and singing. And I opened my eyes and there was 40 people there. I was like, how does that work? That's amazing.
Yeah, yeah.
And then I put out a hat and my friend was homeless at the time, the guy that was beatboxing, and we made him $25 in a half an hour.
Wow.
And he ate for the next 2 days. He
Yeah.
ate, he even ate more than that. He bought a bag of rice. So, and he lived in a can, believe it or not, an actual can by the railroad tracks, an old oil drum. That's what he was living in. I'm saying once I learned that, and he taught me how to dumpster dive, this guy. And he comes from Colorado and now he has a family and he lives in Costa Rica and Honduras and Colorado, and he built an earth ship out of tires. And yeah, I never knew there's a whole world that exists of actual industrious homeless people that are not being homeless because, you know, they're crazy or they're on drugs. They're homeless because they don't want to be part of the system. They want to work outside the system.
Yeah. Drop
And
out. Try
yeah,
hard, tune in, drop out.
that inspired me. I dropped out of New York society and went up to the mountains. And I think it's, to me, my family, like, we love it. My mom, my stepdad, me, the rest of the family thinks we're crazy, but we love homesteading. It's not for everybody.
Yeah. Yep. Let them think you're crazy.
Let's say, yeah, look at my hair. Look at this, Kayla. I've literally gone crazy living up in the mountains. I look like the crazy person, but
I forgot what one of the women that's a part of my like divorced moms group said something, and I'm like, I prefer being lonely than to hang out in like, you know, a society or with people who are inauthentic, you know.
with the phonies,
Yeah, I know. To me, reality is nature. That's mm.
I, well, as you see where I live, I wholeheartedly agree. That's my reality.
Yeah.
I'm also curious about all these new communities that are popping up all over the world. And there's like the millennials are now old, like they're like in their 40s.
That's right.
My little brother just turned 40, and I'm
Oh,
just
I thought you were a millennial. You're not a
no,
millennial?
I'm 50. What am I, 50? When I think I'm turning 53 this year, 52. I don't even know how old I am.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm just at the bottom of Gen X.
Oh yeah,
But
I'm in the bottom of Gen X too.
yeah. But watching the millennials turn into the Gen Xers is fun. Meaning watching them go through their 40s and 50s is going to be a really good time. And I just saw a speech from this linguist guy I follow. Um, I think I told you, Barry, that guy Xiao Mei, the language guy on YouTube, the
Oh,
Chinese speaking native.
mhm.
He just gave a speech to Gen Alpha as a language. So he had to spend 2 weeks learning Gen Alpha language, and then gave a speech to a middle school and to like PhD students in Gen Alpha language. It was so
Oh
silly.
yeah. My son's Gen Alpha, and then the oldest one is Gen Z.
Are you speaking their language, Kayla?
Huh?
Can you speak skibbity toilet and on
Oh,
God, no cap?
well, I understand some of it, not all of it. I don't
Okay.
say skibbity or
Are you out of
nar.
pocket? Are you out of pocket or what's going on?
I don't say nar. What else? What else do you say, Max? Max actually, Max is laughing. He actually showed his face last week at the GCC. But
Do you
yeah, no.
do you tell Max that we talked like that when we were kids?
Oh God, he doesn't believe me. He thinks everything that we talk, you know, he just thinks I'm gross and every old person is
Right.
gross.
Well, they are. We are gross.
Gross. So gross, mom. Ew. That's what I get all the time.
I think
Ew.
you're fly. I think you're dope. Tell him you're not
They're
gross.
like,
You're fly.
ew.
No, tell him he's groovy.
Yeah, groovy. There you go. Go on, Sam.
Ew.
No,
Tell him
but
we're
all
all
that
neat.
totally for sure.
Would have known, right? That we'd be gross.
Well, I think everything has to evolve. I think that's my whole point is that to him, Max is going to be in 20 years.
Gross.
I'm just saying it's a cycle of constant evolution and change, and it just keeps going. Like I watch the young kids, they're like, you guys had the iPhone when you like that was the most transformative thing in my life was the iPhone shaped me and shaped my existence. And now I'm going to shape the world with a robot, a humanoid robot. And I'm like, it's the same stuff just over and over again.
Max
Like,
asked me about the phone. What'd you say, sweetie? You're all like, it wasn't the push button phones, right? It was the rotary phones where you stick your finger and like the number four, and then you like rotate it.
And it
He's
goes click,
listening to
click, click,
me.
click, click, click,
You
click,
gotta
click, click,
like
click, click, click.
rotate it. He's all, how did you do that? I was like, holy crap. I'm all, well, you stick your finger here and then you like rotate it clockwise and then you let go when you can't stop, and then all of a sudden it magically dials for you. That was funny when he said that. I just was like in tears laughing.
you just
I
made me think of like, oh, sorry, go ahead, Sam.
There was a term before the word phone was used. Do you remember the devices they came out with before the phone, quote unquote, got so popular?
Telegraph?
No, as the device that you held, same form factor.
Tin can.
No.
Pigeon.
Do you remember PDA?
Oh, personal something.
Digital assistant, otherwise known as public displays of affection.
Yeah, they never caught on because
You talking about Palm Pilots? What are you talking about, Sam?
Exactly. Palm Pilots and Windows CE devices, but Palm and Qualcomm devices were the first ones.
Did you have the little connector for the Palm Pilot, that big fat thing you stuck on the back that gave it radio signals?
Don't think so.
It was
You
a
had to
little
sync
modem you
it
could
with a
buy.
cable. Well, I bought a modem for one of the later devices, but not the earliest. And in fact, now that you mentioned that, do you remember a company called Ricochet?
I remember the name of it. Yeah, I remember it was Rim and Ricochet were the two big companies that worked with Palm.
Ricochet was a great device. It allowed these devices to hook into the cell service, okay, and get
Yeah,
connectivity
that's
and
what I'm
onto
talking
the
about.
internet. Yeah, so I had one of those. And then Ricochet went under. You know why?
Why?
They didn't keep a database of where they put these cell towers. They couldn't locate them. They couldn't maintain them.
We laugh now, but those were big. Like, in other words, like some of the easiest problems to solve now were the hardest problems back then.
Like, 8,000 devices, they didn't know where to go find them.
Yeah, that sounds about right. It's
Stupid.
I remember reading an article about Wi-Fi. I bought my new Sony computer. I forget what it was called, Vio. Do you remember the Vio?
VAIO, yes.
Yeah. So the new fancy little portable laptop from Sony that's so amazing, and it came with a Clie, which was the new Palm Pilot, and you could use memory in between each other, and it was like this new. I'm in the future, and I've got this fancy, fast little computer, and it has Wi-Fi built into the computer. Now all I have to do is find a hotspot. And so I read online that Starbucks was putting in hotspots. So I got on a plane and flew to New York to the first Starbucks that was going to have a hotspot in Manhattan. Walked in there and was ready to connect and work from the coffee shop, the dream. And nobody even knew what the password was. They didn't know that they had a hotspot. The manager, they had to call the manager in. I sat there for an hour. They came in. They said, "We don't even know if this is turned on. Like, we don't even know how to use this." Technology, it was so new that they didn't even, no one had ever asked them for a hotspot. So I was the first person to connect to their hotspot. And then I got to work from remote outside of the house, which was really amazing. It was really fast. So to me, that was worth a lot of money. I don't know. Did you have hotspots back in the day, Barry? Do you remember when they first came in? The first Wi-Fi hotspots in 2000, 2002,
well,
I think it was.
yeah, you could make a hotspot out of either a PC or an iPhone, for example. You could if you were on a cell connection, you can make a Wi-Fi hotspot, and maybe some PCs that had Wi-Fi could also be had a feature for hotspot.
Yeah. Well, they were nowhere to be found. And then by the end of that year, within 6 months, they were everywhere. They were ubiquitous. Every little mom and pop coffee shop had one. And
Right.
I'm just saying they put it in routers that had public hotspots and little ways to connect through the browser. And I'm just saying they move fast. I've never seen anything at that time move that fast. The only thing that's moving that fast is this chat GPT stuff. Like, I can't believe how fast the new Gemini version model is,
Yeah, they
came
come
out
out.
last week. And
Yeah, they update them about every year or two.
Do you guys look to see what ChatGPT thinks about you? Or did we have that conversation before?
I think I asked years ago if it ever heard of me, and I can't remember what the answer was now.
Oh
yeah,
no, you could look at its memory and see what it summarizes about you. It's pretty interesting.
you, yeah, ChatGPT thinks I'm black, Kayla.
Shut
I
up.
said, no, I'm not kidding. I said, everything you know about me, show me what I look like. Draw a picture. Like, It did it 3 times. An older black man in his 50s.
Did
And I
you
said, I
did you
told it
go
I'm
into
Italian and German, and it still drew me as black.
did you look at its actual like memory and see what it
Yeah.
summarized based on your conversations?
Yeah, because I do a lot of work with music with it and hip hop.
Oh, that's cool.
So I'm constantly like making beats and writing lyrics, and it thinks I'm because I like old black hip hop artists, it thinks I'm black. Well, that and other reasons because it's listening to my conversations.
Oh,
Oh,
it's
it's
racist.
A little bit. I mean, I even told it, Sam, what race I am. It's
Yeah.
pretty racist.
racist.
It's also over complimenting. Have you guys seen the articles in the last couple of weeks about how it's broken because it's sucking up to people? It's a sycophant,
It was from
Well,
the very start. It
right?
was
But it's
I
trained to
gotten
like
do
it.
that.
really, it's the
Someone's got to
training.
be on your team.
Kayla's like, wait, don't stop it. I do look beautiful.
Yeah.
Stop.
Hey, I'll take that. When I looked at what it thought about me, like, oh, she's becoming a really good leader. She's helping her team. I was like, oh, damn. Okay. All right.
Only you, Kayla, would think of that wonderful, amazing question. Let me look into that for you. That's what it says to me all the time. It's like, you're so brilliant, Joshua. Oh my God.
Oh, thank God. Hopefully that'll help people with their confidence and self-esteem.
I think it's dangerous. I mean, they think it's dangerous. They're reprogramming it out. They don't like it. They don't want that. It's uh, watching these things evolve. Like, have you given it some of your hard questions, Barry? The latest models?
Well, the most important thing I did is using a Socratic method. I got it to construct the uh, the basic model of emotions and learning, and clearly it didn't already know that because it hadn't read any of my original publications. And by asking carefully crafted questions, I was able to get it to, in about 20 minutes, construct pretty much the entire model. I also tried to get it to find the mistake in Bell's theorem, and it couldn't.
Yeah,
It
I did
sort
that
of
with
did,
you
but
one time.
it sort of did, but then it kept reverting to the incorrect interpretation.
Yeah, I'd love to do that with you again because I'm really fast. Ever since you said what's the mistake in Bell's theorem, there's a gentleman from Harvard who's going through the history of science and trying to find not the mistakes, but the perturbations that led people on different paths to create different branches of science.
Once you see it, it's so obvious. I mean, the mistake was you adopted Newton's simplified model that space-time is rigid and time ticks at the same rate everywhere and everywhere, and that greatly simplifies doing the calculus. And if you say, well, no, general relativity, space is curved and time doesn't tick at the same rate everywhere. If you throw away that simplifying assumption, you can't carry out Bell's derivation. You have to
With
use
relativity, you're
Yeah,
saying?
you have to use gravitational path integrals. You can't just do an integral and say that space is rigid and time is fixed along any path. It's not true. And as soon as you have the curvature, then if you say two things are born in phase locked loop, as they move apart, they drift out of phase. And that drifting out of phase is essentially an unknown, and that makes it random eventually. That's the
Yeah.
decoherence. And that decoherence is well known. The question is, why is it decohering? Because there are gravitational gradients everywhere. And therefore, timekeeping is local, and therefore things that were in phase drift out of phase when they separate in space.
Do you think that's what's happening with society right now? The gravitational interference is drifting us all away from each other?
No, it's that the information that we get is not was never was in sync.
But that's my
We,
point. It's not phase locked at all.
we never even got initial information that was correct. We got everybody got their own initial um, hypothesis, most of which were wrong, maybe one of which accidentally was correct, and the wrong ones greatly outnumbered the correct ones.
Do you think that's by design? I'm saying the
No,
Council
I
of
think that's
Nicaea.
because we're not scientists. That most people don't do hypothesis testing in any rigorous way. And even good scientists suck at hypothesis testing.
But do you think that's by design that we're not good scientists?
It's that pattern recognition for survival doesn't require it. Because if you make a mistake in survival, the worst that can happen is that you escape a non-threat. So if you escape a non-threat, you still survive. If you don't escape a threat, then you don't survive. So being wrong in estimating a threat, you end up wasting time and energy, but you don't die.
Not in the societies that you grew up in, but in the societies I grew up in, you die.
Well, if you live in a technological society and you don't understand technology, then you're not competitive.
I'm saying there's two societies that I spent majority of my childhood growing up in. One was the inner city, which if you make the wrong mistake and look at someone incorrectly, you can definitely die. I had friends that died. They
Yeah.
got stabbed and they got hit with a bottle in the head and died. So that was one threat that if you mess up, you die. And then moving out to the country, because there were mountain lions and wolves and bears and that kind of thing, there were threats. If you didn't map your where you were in the woods and you got lost, there were kids that died that didn't come back that night and
Well,
died.
there are definitely real threats, which if you mischaracterize a real threat, then you're in real risk.
Yeah.
That's always the case. The problem is the other way around, that overestimating a risk that's not real is, you will take defensive measures that you didn't need to take.
Yeah. Well, I'm
Well,
excited
what Barry's
about.
saying is that's
Oh, go ahead.
seldom fatal.
Right.
I heard him.
Barry's saying that.
I heard him, Sam. Yep. Well, I agree. Seldom fail. Yeah. So I'm just saying I'm really excited about living in a world where there is no more you're off the grid, no communication. Everyone has satellite phones. Everyone can communicate everywhere and GPS and find anyone everywhere. And I think that's going to save a lot of lives. A lot of people that went missing from aliens, turns out they just slipped and broke their ankle. And it's not aliens, it's just people that broke their ankle out in the national forest.
There was that
But they
point
didn't.
ago yesterday. Um,
What?
and I asked like the one of the commanders. Everybody was asking them some smart shit, right? I'm all like, hey, I take them aside. I said, this is a funny question, but I have to ask it. Have you seen any aliens? Quick, go. Because
I'm an
everybody's talking
alien.
about.
I'm an alien.
Sorry, I just,
Did he
I
say
love
he's friends with
aliens.
Barry on social media and he
Yeah.
knows Barry?
The funny thing about this guy is he took me very seriously. He was all like, actually, he goes, I personally haven't seen it, but I know someone who says that they see it all the time. And I'm all, damn, okay.
Well, I did download, Sam, all the files that you had on that G drive or whatever, on that Google Drive of all of our conversations. And I know at one point, like last year, you, me, and Barry, or I think it was the three of us, went into that UAP story either 2 years ago or a year ago.
Hmm.
And I liked what Barry had said, and I think it's your hypothesis, Barry, seems to be the one that's coming up now recently, is that it's a some sort of plasma ball that's being looked at as an actual physical thing when it's just a decoy from the government, meaning the Tic Tac that was seen in 2017, published in the New York Times, that was off the coast of San Diego in 2005, I believe it was, the Nimitz incident. If you guys are familiar with that, the Tic Tac that anyway, there's a famous incident that was published in New York Times, and it's kind of kicked off all this UAP stuff. But turns out it's probably a weapon that was being tested, and that was your contention, Barry. And
Jeez, I don't even remember that.
I know that's what I'm saying. I have one of those weird memories. That's what's also driving me insane. Is like most people don't remember 3 weeks ago.
I
Like
remember
all
3
this.
minutes ago.
Yeah, all of a sudden the Tesla stock started rising and everyone forgot to protest Tesla. It's like, hey, did you guys forget? Like, it's the weekend. Go protest Tesla. What are you doing? The stock's rising. Make it go down again. Like, I want to buy it low. Like, I really want them to go protest so I can get some more cheap Tesla stock. Like, I was having a great time buying up cheap Tesla stock, and now they're stopped protesting and it's going up over 300, and it's messing up my life right now. Like, I'm half joking, but I'm not joking. Like, I mean, like, seriously, they don't remember. Literally, we're like have fish brains in society. I find that disturbing that
Yeah,
people literally cannot remember what happened like the fires in California. I haven't heard one person mention them. I heard like one thing on YouTube recently, and that was it. Nobody's talking about the fires in California, as if there's not a giant, huge catastrophe of a mess to clean up in that area.
well, because
I
of
don't
their
know. I heard it all the time.
You hear it? People talk about the cleaning up the mess.
Yeah. Well, I'm in a different, I hang out with different people, I guess. But yeah.
Yeah. How are they doing? I haven't heard anything. No one's telling me.
Well, it's they're still rebuilding. They still need money. We had a fundraiser for them a couple of weeks ago. The week after I came back from Hawaii, we had a fundraiser for them, trivia night, and a couple of them told their story. But we're giving money to them.
People living
That's
back at their property, or are they,
no,
where are people living?
no. I'm not sure, but I do know that several people in the Palisades had inquired into Ventura County, and it was exciting people because they could rent their property, which is not really moral, but it is what it is. But some people had extra property that they could rent and couldn't find good renters, suddenly could rent to, people who lived in the Palisades for twice the amount. So
Mm.
they're living
The
everywhere.
property values in Ventura are going up.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
that's what it sounds like. All
Uh-huh.
right.
Yeah.
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 Yep. Well, I'm gonna say goodbye. I'm just sitting outside of the post office waiting for them to open up so I can get Cusella her Mother's Day present.
Happy
Oh, I
Mother's
already got
Day.
my
Oh yeah,
Mother's
Happy
Day
Mother's Day,
present for
Kayla.
What'd you
I got
get? Yeah,
my
happy Mother's
stuff,
Day.
my Mother's Day
What'd you get
diamond
yourself?
earrings.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, I told myself I was gonna every year from now on, for Mother's Day, I'm going to get myself a piece of good jewelry. And I've always wanted to own diamond earrings. And so I'm like, fuck it. I'm gonna buy it for myself this year. And I am wearing it as we speak, and I love it.
Cool.
Yeah.
I like it. Do you buy yourself presents, Barry?
Not really.
I I never used to do that, and I just started recently. Like, you know what? I'm gonna buy something that is totally stupid and I don't need it at all. And sometimes it makes me happy, and then sometimes I just look at it and go, "That's totally stupid. I would have wasted money." Like,
A lot of stuff is a waste of money.
yeah, that's kind of what I'm learning. Like, I think I'm gonna go back to what I used to do, just not buying stuff that I don't need.
I mean, even things that you think you need when you buy them, I didn't end up using it after all.
Yeah, yeah. I bought this projector TV. It's like 100-inch TV that projects on the wall. It's amazing. We used it for about 2 days, and now it just sits there. No one's using it.
I thought I would get back into Chinese cooking in the wok, so I bought a bunch of the spices and stuff you go. And then I found out I've lost my sense of smell anyway. So all these spices, they don't add any flavor to the food because I've lost my ability to enjoy flavors. Everything is just bland, no matter how much spices I put in it.
So,
Sounds to
like,
me,
completely
very
bland.
Pretty much. I mean, salt, yes, sweet, yes, but the aromas, forget it. There's almost no aroma left. And my dad had the same thing. He lost his sense of smell also in his senior years, and I've got the same thing. That basically my
Oh,
sense of smell is gone. So
that sucks,
food is
Barry.
food has got texture, but really no aroma to it to speak of.
Is
My
there
dad's
any
going through the
kind
same thing.
of Yeah, is there any kind of reversal gut biome type of stuff? Like I used to get really big into the microbiome for that
No,
reason.
because it's the sensors, in your nasal passages. Basically, I don't know, they die off or whatever happens. Now I can still get, taste on the tongue, sweet, sour, salt, and bitter, and I can get heat from like hot peppers and stuff, which is not an aroma. But anything that's an aroma, pretty much is just gone. Like garlic, forget it. I just not no response.
What if I told you I could give you a Neuralink sensor in your brain that would bring that back? Would you do
Well,
it?
if that existed, it was, maybe I would. The thing is that it 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 means that I don't have much of an appetite for, flavorful foods because there's no point. Almost everything I eat is just relatively neutral flavor.
Right. Yeah, that's no fun.
Yeah, it's not debilitating. It's just I don't get enjoyment out of, gastronomical stuff anymore.
Well, it's also neurologically damaging because if you're not excited about eating, then that part of your body that nourishes you is not working in the way it used to. So it changes your psychological.
A lot of that
It's
stuff, I noticed that a lot of things that I used to get enjoyment out of, it just doesn't do anything for me anymore.
yeah. Yeah, I think finding things that stimulate you is so important.
Yeah, and it's getting harder and harder to find things which are realistic,
Realistic.
and yet pleasurable. And a lot of things that are what used to be pleasurable just aren't anymore.
Yeah. I find that I have to evolve, at least for me, when that happens, I have to evolve myself to try things that I don't think would be pleasurable, but like, I don't know, I'm just finding there's new hobbies that I never like. I never thought I would like these things, and now I like these things. Like,
Yeah.
I feel like I'm turning into my stepdad. Like, I'm watching, like, I'm in the backyard, like, cleaning up, and now I'm using a hose. And, like, I was never that dude in the backyard
Yeah. I
creating
was
gardens. And,
I was
yeah,
never into gardening ever. I mean, I
yeah,
remember as a child trying to do something with the garden when, in the house I grew up in, and it was ridiculous. I had no idea what I was doing, and I couldn't
yeah,
grow anything in the soil anyway.
that's what I'm picking up a new gardening tool thing. Like, that's all I've been interested in lately is gardening and composting and worms and
Yeah.
soil and water. And like I feel like I'm turning into my kid too, because she just likes to play with water for hours. And now I'm like, what kind of mister is in the hose? And like I never cared about this stuff.
So
So yeah.
I'm muddling along. I can't say that I'm thriving, you know. Uh, not I guess at one point I might have been able to say I was thriving, maybe in my 30s, possibly, but I don't feel like I'm thriving anymore, if ever I was.
Yeah. Well, all I know is my kid is forcing me to do things I would never do.
Yeah, maybe that's good.
I
I
think
didn't
so.
have.
I think it's good.
Yeah,
Yeah, children have a tendency to make us into better people than we want to be.
yeah, I agree with that. There was a brief time when I was sort of playing the role of parent to a couple little girls but they weren't my own children, so I was sort of a pseudo parent or a surrogate parent for a few years.
Speaking on that, Barry, my sister just went back to Boston. She hadn't visited in over 10 years, and she showed me the inside of the Science Museum, and I couldn't believe it was still there. Like it still looks the same.
It's
It
still there.
hasn't
It's the same.
changed.
The building's the same. The exhibits change, but the building, I mean, the architecture of the building is the arch. It's always what it's been for
I was
over 30 years, 40
I was
years.
gonna say, can you go back and do your puzzles there? Is there a new management? Is it the same
No,
people? Is it?
no, they changed the policy so that volunteers can't do their own thing anymore. And the puzzles is my own thing. And they said, no, volunteers have to do the standard interpretations. And
Yeah, but
that,
it's Boston. They got a history of changing things back and people bucking the system. And
well, at this point, I mean, that happened already 10 years ago. So,
yeah,
when I was about 70, that happened. And now I'm 80 and I'm not going to go back. It's
All right.
gone. It's all gone. That was one of
Well,
several big disappointments where I thought I was doing something worthwhile, and then the opportunity for it just vanished out from under me.
yeah, I was inspired by Jordan Peterson's effort to create an academy. And I'm looking from the outside. I don't really know exactly what he's doing, but I like the idea of creating new institutions and new academies and new, multiversities and learning and educational places.
Yeah.
I
I
think
was
that's,
not terribly impressed by him, but then that's just me.
I'm not that impressed by him either, but I do like the fact that he's organized enough people that want to try. I don't know if he's going to succeed or do well or whatever. Sounds like he's not succeeding because they keep lowering the prices.
Yeah. I don't know.
But
I stopped following him maybe 5 years ago.
yeah,
Not that I ever really was following him, but he was sort of much more prominent in the social networks, and then he kind of faded.
yeah. To me, it's more being inspired and inspiring each other is the reason for humanity. I think we all exist. Like, I think China should inspire America and America should inspire China.
It's not
And then,
happening, though. I think we're all becoming increasingly dispirited because of the lack of working cooperatively.
I don't think we're all looking at what each other. I think if we saw each other's work, we'd be super inspired.
Well, maybe. I mean, a lot of people are inspired by AI, and then people like Jeffrey Hinton and others have a lot of reservations about, it being abused or misused or
Yeah.
not living up to its hype. Most things don't live up to their hype, or they have a short-lived honeymoon, and then they kind of become blasé after that.
Big, I don't know with the AI thing. I'm just watching it continue to evolve like rapidly. Like I just got an update just now coming to the post office. It said a huge software update in Tesla today, and no one told me that was coming. There were rumors, but I'm super excited to try out this new update
Well, hopefully it'll drive you
because
home
this
safely.
is. It, I'd be more excited if it didn't. Like that's the fun part is when it's making decisions that are wrong. It's like when it's working, it's boring.
Yeah, but it can be also very scary when it makes stupid decisions.
But that's what I'm saying is we're so risk averse. Like, yay, let's go for the scary. Like it's
I am risk averse. I will be the first to admit
yeah.
I don't like to take unnecessary risks.
I like driving motorcycles mostly because when I ride things like a motorcycle or go to that place where it's very, very, very dangerous, like walking on a side of a building, it heightens certain aspects of my physiology.
Yeah.
And I believe that increases chemical um what are all the like the dopamine, the neuro
See, I don't get adrenaline highs. A lot of people will
yeah.
take risks because they get adrenaline highs. I don't get adrenaline highs. I can get an endorphin high from solving a hard problem, but my days of solving hard problems are in the distant past, and so I no longer get the endorphin highs because I just don't have the brain power anymore to work on hard problems.
Do you ever go to super high heights and look down?
I don't get acrophobia, but also I don't have much opportunity to go to high heights.
No. What do you mean?
Where am I going to go to high
Yeah.
heights? I mean, I'm
Go
sitting
on top of any
down.
of the buildings in downtown
I
Boston.
don't go downtown anymore. Hardly ever
Go on
did in
top
the
of
first
anyone's
place.
a 4-story building is high enough.
Yeah.
If
I
you
mean,
if you have a
even when
friend
I
that
worked
lives
in a
on
7-story building and I could look out the window, it didn't bother me. So,
no, but I'm just saying go to the like I was at a the last time I did this I was at a parking garage in Los Angeles and it was this weird little ledge at the top of the parking garage and I looked over it and I got that queasy feeling in my
well,
stomach. I hadn't gotten that in a while.
I could sit in an aisle in a window seat in an airplane and look out the window, and I don't get any negative effect of looking out the airplane windows.
No, you
Never
got to
did.
have the actual opportunity of falling off the thing. Like
Well,
this parking garage was like, if I leaned just a little more over, I would have fallen.
yeah.
Yeah.
So there's very few things that will give me a buzz anymore. I never could get an adrenaline buzz. Don't much get dopamine buzzes, serotonin buzzes, nor just don't get buzzes anymore from anything, not even food.
Well, do you want a buzz?
Well, if something has sort of, got me excited and thrilled and, you know,
I wish I lived near you, Barry. I'd go right to your house right now and pick you up in my car and we test out the new software and I'd let you drive.
I'd probably be white knuckled and
Yeah,
clenching my
oh,
teeth.
you'd be white knuckling it for sure.
I don't clench my teeth much anymore. I used to, but I don't much anymore.
Yeah. I was gonna say if you ever want to take a drive with me when the first time they update the software, it's kind of interesting to watch it because you're like, is it gonna crash or is it going to make this turn? Let's find out.
The scariest thing is just bad bureaucracy. For my life, the scariest thing is people in power making stupid decisions and then trying to enforce them.
Is that as scary as the people that I don't know. I just feel like I've been talking to people all over the world recently, like people from Syria and Lebanon and people from Laos and Thailand. And there's just so many times where like the real Khmer Rouge, like they've had some real like that's why I laugh at Americans. They're like, oh no, they're taking our rights away. It's like we have so many rights. Like there's so many places where they have literally zero rights.
Yeah.
Like I just feel like Americans are so full of themselves that they don't even realize how much actual freedom they have. Like if they took away half of our freedom, we'd still have 100 times more than most people.
Yeah. Well, I could wax poetic on that score, but I'm not gonna.
Yeah, I me neither. I'm just saying the way people govern around the world is I think just people need to travel a little more.
It's dispiriting the way governance systems are so dysfunctional, so erratic. It's just very dispiriting.
It's just to me it's just different. Like some places you're not allowed to wear certain things and then I'll always remember being in Ecuador, sitting in a cafe above this town square, watching a gentleman about to pee. And from my vantage point, I could see there was a police officer on a horse just around the corner that he couldn't see. So from my vantage point up high, I could see that he's about to come around the corner and the police officer is about to watch him pee right in front of the police officer. And I leaned over to my brother and said, watch this, dude. This guy's about to get arrested. And he goes, dude, it's totally legal. You can pee in the street. And I went, what? I love this country. I'm moving to Ecuador. You can pee in the street in front of a cop and not get arrested. This is amazing.
But you can also, transfer diseases too more readily.
Well, that what I'm saying that point to say is like that one freedom that he had, I didn't have in New York City.
Well, yeah, peeing in the street, or even I can remember growing up in Omaha, and the buses had a sign, "Don't spit upon the floor."
Yeah. But but what I'm trying to say is I have so many freedoms in America, but I didn't have that one freedom, and that's the freedom I really wanted. Whereas in his country, if you steal a bicycle, you can get 7 years imprisonment in Ecuador.
Yeah, I don't know.
I'm just I'm just saying, yeah, there's so many. Like, who's to say what's better?
So Josh, you want to pee in public and not get arrested?
That's why I live in the country, Kayla. I, I I told my daughter the other day she peed in her diaper and I changed it and I was like, "Yeah, Daddy has to pee too, so we're going home." And she's like, "No, I want to stay here." And I'm like, "I don't have a diaper like you. I can't just go in my diaper. It's not fair." So yeah, I do want to pee in public and I think I'm going to get a diaper.
Well, that's what older people do. They get Depends or whatever those things are called.
And then you can just throw them out in the trash, right? If you
I
pee
don't
in the
know.
diaper. I don't
I've
know how
never.
that works.
I'm not to the point where I need Depends, so I couldn't tell you.
I'm just saying, yeah, I do think the freedom to just go over to a tree and pee in nature is one of the main reasons why I like living off the grid.
I mean, I would go for a long walk, more than an hour. Maybe would go behind a tree and pee if I had to. I've done that, even in, the suburbs. But you can go behind a tree. You find some place where
I I did that in Bakersfield the other day, and a cop came over, one of those little mall cop dudes. And just when I zipped up my zipper, he's like, because I'm at the corner of the parking lot by a tree.
Yeah.
And he came over
You
and
know
like,
what
I
I
saw you.
you know what I
Yep.
would love to do in every single country? I would love to feel in every single country is safe. As a woman, I would love to feel that. Now, as an older woman, as a middle-aged woman, I have had the pleasure of feeling invisible. And I almost want to, say that it's a good feeling. Actually, it's mostly a good feeling because I mean, for all of my life, everywhere I've gone, I've been harassed. I've been, like just objectified. And I don't know. It's like when you're talking about like the rights and the freedoms, yeah, United States has lots of rights, lots of freedom, but I wish I could say something as simple as I would love to pee in public. Thankfully, it's not something that I want to do.
Well, what
I
about
like
Hawaii?
I can scarcely like pee, out and I don't like to go to like public restrooms. But if you're asking me among Polynesian people, yeah, there's a lot less, there's a lot less sexism. It's not as vulgar as it is here, in California. But there still is. There still is that objectification and that longing. There still is the male gaze that makes women feel unsafe.
It's funny you say that because I feel the same way about women. There was a women gaze that made me feel unsafe.
Okay.
I
I
know it
don't think you
sounds
felt
crazy.
unsafe. I have trouble relating to that. How did you feel unsafe from that woman?
Well, I actually got assaulted by women when I was in high school, so I almost
But
got raped.
but was there a likelihood that that would have happened in this
Yeah,
one instance?
yeah.
There was no one else around?
No one else around. They locked me in a closet, Sam.
No, I mean this recent time when someone actually looked at you.
No, recently I don't feel that. I'm too old. But when I was younger in New York, I was in a lot of environments where the women gave me this look where I did not feel safe. It's a terrible feeling. I understand what Kayla's talking about. It's not a good feeling. It's real.
I think for what women go through, it's probably a million times worse. Because I've
Yeah,
heard this from just about every woman that I've met, and it's
it's daily.
everywhere they go.
It was at one point it was daily for me. I mean, thankfully, either my dad raised me to be a tough person or just naturally a tough person or both. But it was almost daily. I used to have a bitchy, like resting bitch face. It didn't matter. I used to be really mean and cruel to men, like on purpose, straight up really mean and cruel. Like I used to know how to really put down a man in public, and then I stopped doing it because some men would get violent. Um, but I had to do it because I felt so unsafe. I don't know how many other people said, "Oh yeah, that's just like the way guys are, and you shouldn't dress a certain way. You shouldn't." It's like, what? Are you
Yeah,
Have
kidding
you ever
me?
that's the
found a
bullshit.
place? Have you found a place, Kayla, where the women can be safe, like countries or towns or places where the women are safe?
No, no, it's everywhere.
I hope you
In the
find that one
US,
day,
in the US.
like in Costa
In the
Rica or somewhere. Or
No, in Costa Rica it was worse, dude. I couldn't even wear a dress. Like they straight up said, "Don't wear a dress, wear jeans." And and then I saw some of the women from the United States that I went to school with wearing dresses, and I saw how objectified they were. It was a different story because some of them actually liked it. But I saw the danger in that, and I'm like, "Ooh, tread lightly, girl." The women in Costa Rica didn't even dress like that.
yeah,
And so I always wear pants, and I don't wear pants. I'm not a pants girl. Like, I'm a dress girl.
Yeah.
Kayla, have
Yeah,
you been
it's supposed to
in
be
Japan?
bad. Huh?
Have you been in Japan?
Oh no, I have not been in Japan.
So it's curious. It's a very strange society. There's almost more porn in Japan than almost any other country. But reportedly, and I'm not a woman, so I can't actually speak as a woman, but reportedly, women can go anywhere on their own and don't feel like they're in danger.
That's great. Although I do see a lot of, instances on the news where women have come forward about certain like stars in Japan, but
Yeah, I'm not
those
saying
are
it's eradicated.
stars. Yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to like it just like when you're talking about rights, it always hits a spot as a woman.
Yeah.
Don't be sorry, Kayla. I think that's important that we talk about things that are important to each individual, and that's how you create societies.
You know what I've been seeing a lot lately, and I don't know if you guys have been seeing a lot of this, but all of the deportation and all of the, US citizen birthright and stuff. For the first time in my life, have I ever felt a little scared? Not completely scared. Nothing totally freaks me out. The only thing that really freaks me out is the possibility that my children might be in danger. And so this is an extension of my children possibly being in danger of like our citizenship being taken away because of our color. That's another thing that I've been feeling lately, especially in mostly white Ventura County.
For what it's worth, Kayla, I'm with you on that one.
It sucks because it could go either way. Like, thankfully, I'm kind of whitewashed, and so are my kids, but we're very ethnically, and we all insist on being our individual selves. And it's kind of now I'm thinking like, oh, how am I going to try to encourage my kids to, number one, be their authentic self, and number two, fight for their rights and the rights of others. And that makes me so sad. It really does. Like, we went to Ventura High School. That's where my where Max is going to, and it was mostly white people there, mostly. And I love white people. Don't get me wrong, but it's still a bit scary knowing that my kid is going to go in an environment where there's not too many people that look like him, and not to mention he is LGBTQ. So that's like a bigger target on his back. The only thing that I'm kind of happy about, which is really sad because he was sad about it, is that he actually got his hair cut. I'm like, well, you look like a boy at least. And that puts us like decades back.
Yep.
And that is so fucking sad. It's funny because my friend from Hawaii was like, you should live in Hawaii. There's a position that she's encouraging me to apply for. It would hypothetically be really nice, but the opportunities for Max would not be so plentiful as they are here. But it would be a little safer. So it's not a good way to live your life when you have certain rights being questioned and taken away. And it really makes me sad that there are like beautiful white women who are very racist, and they're openly racist about it. Because as a woman, first and foremost, I'm like, come on, sister, you don't have rights either.
Hey, Kayla.
Huh.
I didn't actually see the video, but Gail was telling me that she saw a short video where a young, yes, white mother with like a toddler, 3 or 4 years old, was at a playground. And she had left her purse on the bench, and one of the other 3 or 4 year olds, unfortunately a black child, was playing there and had been, like looking or touching her purse. And when she found out, the woman started calling him a nigger and to get out of there and got very violent and loud. So she actually got, let's say, I think she was actually apprehended because the police officials said, no, you can't really do this. Now, this is really strange. But this is from Gail. I actually haven't seen the video yet. She started a GoFundMe or Kickstarter, whatever the equivalent is in MAGA world, that raises money from the right wing. And she's gotten $750,000 for her court defense. 750,000. And this is like of 3 or 4 days ago. Her target was $1 million. That's what she put on her GoFundMe. But there's that much support for a woman who is just calling a toddler a nigger child. Sorry, I shouldn't even be using the N word. Yeah, go ahead.
Please don't.
So, can I pivot this a little bit? Like, where do you think we went wrong? Where do you think, and I'm going to ask this to the two white men in this world. Do you guys feel, do you have any insight on that?
I assume I'm a white man. That's an
Like what?
assumption.
Well, AI thinks you're black, but what are
You don't
your
know my 23 and me.
okay?
I'm just saying, no, for real though. I'm saying you got to be careful what you assume. And also, Barry might be more darker melanin from his Jewish traditions.
I'm
I'm
a
just saying, like,
redhead.
you don't know where people are from. You don't know.
Barry has
Like,
spoken about where he's from.
I'm a redhead.
what does that mean, though? Where are you from? Where is your redhead
Okay,
heritage from?
but Josh, you're really taking it out of context.
Yes,
I'm
yes,
really
yes.
sorry. Forget
No,
it.
no, you just called me a white man. I don't like
This
being called a
makes
white
me
man. Do you
not.
want me to call you a brown woman? Okay, brown woman,
Yeah,
go ahead. Tell me,
I
brown woman.
am. Josh,
Why
what
are
the
we
fuck?
calling people white and
Josh,
brown?
you're not letting
I don't
Kayla
like that.
speak.
Sam,
Like,
I don't like racism and I don't like being called a white man.
No,
but
actually,
it
Josh, you're
happens.
defending racism, Josh.
You're taking. If
No, don't
anything,
call
you're
me a
not
white
having a
man.
conversation about this.
You
Kayla,
are
you
a
called
white
me a
man,
white man.
Josh.
Apologize.
But you're a white man. You're white, dude.
All right, if
I'm a
you want to
white
prove
man?
that you're not, Josh, show us your 23andMe.
You got it, Sam. Why do I have to prove my heritage and just
Because
ask not to be
you
called
appear
a
as a white
man?
man, you have the privileges of a white man, and you're actually speaking over a woman
Okay,
who's trying to make a
Chinaman. Do you want
point.
me to call you a Chinaman and call you a
I
brown
don't
man,
get
a
offended
brown
by
woman?
that.
That's just
I don't get
racist.
offended by that. Because when you call me
You
You
are
that,
don't get
part of the
offended by being
problem,
called a
Josh.
Chinaman?
you are part of the problem, Josh.
You are.
Why do you guys want to yell at me because I'm a white
Because
Because
man?
you are
you're being.
exhibiting the
Yeah,
exact
time out.
behavior.
Time
You're
out.
exhibiting
Yeah.
exactly the behavior that is oppressing voices like Kayla's. She hasn't
What are
been
Yes.
you
able to speak.
talking about?
She hasn't been
You
able to
are.
speak because you've been interrupting her relentlessly.
You guys have fucking issues, man.
You
Okay,
have fucking
fine.
issues. Okay, black man.
Okay. Do you see Barry saying time out? Well, you're so angry at other people, you took it out on me.
No, you're the one that made it a point,
You
Josh.
have a problem, Josh.
What's my problem, Kayla?
Your problem is you don't see what the actually problem is. You're caught in the fucking details of being called a white man.
So it's okay to call someone a white man?
Yeah. Some white people
Why?
actually like
Let's
it.
talk
How
about it.
You
about,
Let's
how
talk about
about
personally
calling
don't
this.
a
talk about it.
honky and see how he
I
reacts
wasn't
to that?
even, I don't even want to like, that's not where I was going. That's
I'm
not where
sorry.
I was going.
So
I
is
was
it okay
actually
for me to
trying
call you
to
brown
figure
woman?
out.
I just want to know, is it
Yeah,
okay for me to call you
totally.
brown
I
woman?
told
Josh,
you
you're
that.
again
I don't
interrupting
think that's
whenever
I
okay.
Kayla's trying to
told you that.
speak.
And your
And you don't
interruptions
see
are
it, Josh. You're
causing you to
interrupting.
not hear me.
Do you see Barry with the timeout? Timeout, yo.
It's not Barry that we're trying to interact with. You're the one who's interrupting every time Kayla tries to speak.
And you're getting
No,
loud.
you
Just like you got
you
loud.
baited me into
You
this
remember
conversation.
when you and I actually went on a date? You know how fucking embarrassing it was when you got loud in the restaurant? You were being exactly that, obnoxious and embarrassing. Okay, Barry, I'm really sorry.
I don't need this kind of aggravation.
No, we do need this kind of aggravation because that kind of behavior does need to be called out.
I don't need it.
You don't need it, but we do.
I
Kayla and
don't
I do.
I don't need it either. I just don't want
Well,
to be
you're a
called the
white
white man.
man, Josh, and
And
you
if I
don't
open my mouth,
understand the privilege
Sam,
that
do you want to
you're.
argue with me? No, wait, stop
Yes,
for a second. Do you want to argue
yes,
with me? Let's go. Let's do it.
absolutely,
Let's do it. Let's have
absolutely,
an argument. Because it sounds like you're
absolutely.
passively aggressively waiting and
No,
baiting me into a conversation, just waiting for me to say something so you
Josh,
can yell at me.
you've been on record for years with this kind of behavior, and it's all on the record. Okay. Now, what Kayla's trying to make
Great.
us a point, you won't even let her make a point. You detract it to some smaller issue about being called a white man. You don't even want to listen to her.
Yeah, I had an actual question that I think is, it'd be great. Like, where do you think went wrong? How do you think, like, that was my original question.
Am I allowed to speak? I don't want to speak when I'm not allowed to speak. May
Just
the
don't
white man
interrupt.
speak?
Just don't interrupt.
No, let's have this conversation. You want to put me into a box called the white man and say that I'm a
Josh,
problem
you're
person.
making me fucking cry. I'm crying.
You're
Okay?
making me cry. I pulled my car
That's
over
bullshit,
because
Josh.
what do you mean that's
Josh,
bullshit?
That is bullshit.
What do you mean that's
Every
bullshit? Sam,
every time
why are you
Kayla's trying
telling
to
me
make a
what's
you
true
have
or
point,
not
had
true?
you're
issues.
trying to
You know what?
devalue her point.
Yes, you are. By getting into the stupid fucking details.
And this is
Okay?
why
I
you
wanted to
have
have
been
a
doing this to
conversation.
women, Josh.
And it wasn't just me.
Barry, can you tell me what's going on here? Because this is the weirdest shit I've ever seen.
Because
Unpeace is going on. I am very
you're
unpeaced. I am
I'm embarrassed for
profoundly
both of you
unpeaced.
guys.
I am unpeaced.
Me
well,
too.
it's because you
I'm
don't understand
embarrassed
the
for you,
issue.
Sam.
You don't understand the issue,
So
and you don't even
explain
want
it.
to hear it.
I'm
Well, you are not
going
letting Kayla
to
or
pull
me
over.
explain it because you're
Peace.
interrupting every single time.
Sam, give
Peace.
me a second. I'm driving in a car. Let me pull over and I'll
Then
listen
just
to you.
shut
Can
up
I
and
pull
Peace.
listen
over
to
the
her.
car?
Just shut up and listen to her.
I'll shut
Peace.
up. I'm shutting up and listening.
Okay, where did we go wrong here? How is it that all my life I've embraced myself, my color? I've been born into the world as a woman, and now I feel kind of unsafe. Where did we go wrong? Is it because we didn't, why is there this type of racism? Why? How come I don't see white people as being, I love them. Like, I love every color. I love, people, I love Chinese people, Indian people, Black people. Like, why does it matter what power, what happened? What happened to, you know, just what happened? I'm sorry. I can't continue this conversation.
I'm sorry this happened, Kayla.
Left.
I'm sorry this happened too, Sam. I don't understand why you're so angry at me. What
Because
did I do to
you
you?
refused to listen to Kayla when
Wait,
she
stop.
was
Why are you
trying to
yelling at
speak.
me? Can you not yell at me?
Because
Try to say that without yelling at me, Sam.
you refused to listen to Kayla when she was trying to make a point. Every single time she spoke, you spoke over her. And this lasted for many minutes. And you refused to see that.
Is Can I ask a question without being rude to you, Sam?
I'm not sure.
I feel safe with you, Sam. I literally
Okay.
tried to defend myself because I was called a white man, and I felt very
There was nothing to
abused and
defend.
offended by that.
There was nothing to defend.
Wait. Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
In your viewpoint, it's
Yes.
okay to call someone a white man.
Whatever comes out of Kayla's mouth is a reflection of Kayla. It says nothing really about you. What comes out of your mouth, on the other hand, says everything about you and nothing about me or Kayla.
That logic makes no logical sense.
Because you don't understand that point.
No, because you're looking at me as something I'm not, Sam.
No, I'm stating something that you should really reflect on, because psychologically, it's the only thing that makes sense.
Explain more. I don't understand what you're talking about.
In other words, what you say is a function of what is happening inside you. What Kayla says is a function of what's happening inside Kayla. What I say is a function of what's happening inside me. So whatever comes out reflects what's happening inside the person who is speaking. It's not necessarily true about anything else that that person is referring to. So just listen to what's going on with that person and don't try to just take offense from it. Taking offense is not listening, actually. It's
Do
an
you do
easy
that?
excuse. It's an easy excuse to not listen. Yeah,
Are you projecting right now? Is that a possibility?
possible, but I actually do think that there are many other very smart psychologists, very smart people who have thought about this long and hard and understand the truth of it.
Is it possible you're projecting things onto me, is what I'm asking.
Maybe because you and I have had our moments. But I do think that in this particular point, you really, really were very rude to Kayla. And you just needed to understand that. Now, I don't even know if you still understand it or not, but
But
you
do you think
do.
yelling at me and belittling me helps me to understand that?
Actually, I think it does, because when you yell at Kayla, you think you're actually being heard, because that's how you operate. So I'm coming down and yelling at you because that's what you do to others.
Got it. So if you hear me
I'm,
raise my voice in a tone that is yelling, then I deserve to be yelled at.
if you're not giving someone else a chance to speak, then I think yes, because you're driving people away. And Kayla's not the only person who has actually reflected to me that you've done this to them. Now, normally,
I get that that's seriously.
if it's normal concourse and you just actually just are expressing yourself, I don't need to take offense, even if you're calling me an asshole, which you've done many times. I don't care. Okay.
But
But if you're not giving someone else a chance to speak, then I think it's fair to just, let's say, hey, Josh, you're not letting someone else speak. Now, if you still persist in that behavior, then I will yell over you, because that's what you're doing with others.
can I ask you something objectively?
I don't know.
If we were to run all of our conversations through an AI and asked how many times I gave people the chance to speak versus the times that you gave people the chance to speak, what would the AI say?
We should run that experiment. And I
Let's
kind
do
of
it.
already know already, but that's side point. That's a side point from what just happened here. What happened here
No, but
was
if you're
you were
correct
not,
and
see,
right,
you're interrupting me again, Josh.
of course I am, because every time I don't, you just talk over me and you belittle me. And if I don't stand up for myself, I get trounced on by you, Sam.
You should look at the times you've done that to others
I am
and
right
me,
now. I'm trying to stand up for myself. And the minute I do, I get yelled at by you, Sam. And I have
because you
many,
were
many
making a
times on these calls
side
that you do
point.
this.
You were making a very side point where you were
Time
not
out.
letting Kayla make her point. That is my point. You were not letting Kayla speak. And every time she attempted, you spoke over her, and you refused to acknowledge that.
Why did I do that, Sam? Do you want to listen to my side of the situation, or do you want to just tell me I'm wrong?
Because you felt, or
Because you
according
have
to
a
what you
constant
said,
doing that. The minute I speak, just let you speak. But if I speak over you the way you speak over me, you don't let me do that. I let you do it to me. I have many,
I
many
only
things
do that
on
after
record
you've
where
already
you do
done
that.
it repeatedly.
I asked you nicely for a timeout, Sam, but you wanted to get the last word in before we have a pause.
I needed to make a point about Kayla trying to speak, but you were
Your
not
point
letting
was
her,
made. Why was I not letting her, Sam? Because I'm a
because she
problem.
called you a white person. She called you a white
Why did I
man.
take offense to that, Sam?
I don't know, but you could
I
have
was
actually
trying,
waited. You could have actually waited and explained it rather than talk over her, but you didn't.
I did not. That is
You
not
did talk
my
over her. You
style.
did
You
talk
know
over
me.
her. Let's go back to the
I
record. You did
absolutely did.
interrupt
I
her.
just said I did. I admit I did. Not only did I interrupt, I'm interrupting you right now to try to get my point across because at that moment, I didn't want to wait 20 minutes and then get my point across. I want to get my point across right then. And my point is, it's not okay to call two people in the room white man when there's a brown person and a yellow person, if that's the way you want to identify as colors, which I don't see you as a yellow person, Sam, and I don't see her as a brown person. I see her as a human being. I see Barry as a human being. I see me as a human being. And when you belittle me and call me a white man, I take very much offense to that. And I will not stand up for myself. Do you understand me? I
I
am
think I
not
do,
going to let
yes.
you
And I
call
think
me a white man, just like I will not call you a yellow man, and I will not call Barry a red man or whatever he identifies his hair color as. You should not call people colors. I am very adamant about that. I will stand up for that in front of Kayla, you, or anybody in the world. I will not let people call people colors. I do not think that's okay.
I think that's a little too extreme in the political correctness spectrum. I think just like calling someone a man is legit in most cases. Calling someone a woman is legit in most cases. Calling someone a white man is probably not as generalized, but it's still pretty widely accepted when it's clear that people have that heritage and people have that history. So I think objecting to it is mice nuts compared to the point that Kayla was trying to make. And you were trying to make a mice nuts point as opposed to listening to Kayla. You could have said, yes, I object, but you didn't wait. You just did it immediately. Over. Yeah. Yeah.
You think I'm wrong and you're right, Sam?
No, I'm saying you didn't give her a chance to speak
Why?
because you took offense, I would say needlessly,
Why?
because you took offense at being
Did
called
you
a
ask?
white person.
As one friend to another that's known each other for this long a period of time, instead of giving me the benefit of saying, Josh, why are you doing this right now?
I would have,
And
Josh. I
then
would
stop
have.
and listen to me speak.
I would have, and I will. Except you were not letting Kayla speak. You were not generous enough to let her speak. I would have then, after her point was made, I could have come back and say, Josh, why are you offended by someone calling you a white man? I could have done that, and I probably would have done that. But I didn't wait because you didn't give her a chance to speak.
I'm not going to be called a white person. I'm
Yeah,
not going
which
to,
means
I think that's
that was more
wrong.
important to you than her making a point.
That's what
It
I
was
just
more
said.
important for you to take offense than to actually listen to her.
It's more important to me, and I'm not saying I'm right, but I'm telling you why I did what I did, to stand up and say, if there were three black people in the room and Kayla said, let's ask the black men the question, would you think
Mhm.
that's okay?
Probably, yes.
Okay. And that's where we differ. Because I don't think it's okay to call people out because of the color of their skin.
Well, I think it happens all the time, and most of the time, I don't think there's a problem with it.
And that's where we differ.
Okay, so it's good to understand that's where we differ. But I still think you were not generous enough to listen to Kayla. You wanted to immediately respond to being offended by a reference, and that made Kayla leave because she couldn't get her point across. It was more important to you to be offended and to respond, loudly, vehemently, interruptingly, rather than letting Kayla speak. And that
Correct.
says something about your priorities. Your
That's
priorities
not,
are your
that's not,
offensive, your willingness to be offended takes higher priority than to listen to Kayla speak.
did you want to speak, Barry?
No, I want you to stop yelling at each other. This is making me very upset and unpeaced, and I don't want to be upset and unpeaced. And if
Barry, it
that's
has to happen. This has to happen.
then I don't want to be here. I don't want
Then
to
you
be here
don't
and
have
be
to be here,
unpeaced.
Barry. You do not have to be here, Barry, but this has to happen. People cannot keep letting this stuff happen and just be on the sidelines and just say, oh, well, I'm just going to take myself out.
I,
That's the problem with the world right now.
I'm getting a cortisol surge. I don't want a cortisol surge. It's unhealthy for me to have a cortisol surge.
I'm sorry.
Can we just not do this?
No, it has to be done.
And I have to leave.
I
I'm
don't
sorry.
think it has to be done either.
I
I
have to.
don't think
I
it
have
has
to
to be done, Sam.
because
Okay, Barry.
If you need to leave, Barry, I totally understand, but I think me and Sam need to talk because I don't think this has to
well
be done,
then
Sam.
you don't need to have me here to be
I
distressed
to-
over it.
yeah, you
Okay.
don't need to be here. Sorry,
All right.
Barry.
Sorry,
Apologize.
Barry. Sorry, Barry.
Yeah,
Yeah,
if
I
you
do
need to
think
get
it has to
something
be
off
done.
your chest, Sam, I think you should get it off because I feel like I was baited into that conversation. That's what made me so angry.
There's no baiting, okay? You interrupted Kayla. You
No,
didn't let her
come
speak.
on, Sam, she obviously baited me into that conversation. You didn't see that?
No, no.
You didn't see her just go, oh, let's start talking about how all of a sudden I don't feel safe around men. So let me start asking the white men in the you didn't see the baiting of that questioning?
Look, you're questioning her experience. And if she wants to express things in her
No,
experience, in her
she
vernacular,
said
see, again, you're
white
interrupting
men.
me.
She goes,
I
let
let
me
you
ask
ask your
the
question, but you didn't let me
I'm
respond to
sorry,
you.
Sam. That's just my style. I don't mean to be rude to you.
Well, then
That's
I
just
think
the
your
way I
style
was.
is
I'm a New
not
Yorker.
very generous. You want to make your point, but you don't want to let anybody else make their point. And that has been revealed many, many times, Josh.
Hold on one second. I'm just letting Qcella know where I'm at and what's going on. Yeah, I'm very aware that the style of communication from different regions in America and the way people communicate is different. And New Yorkers have a certain style. Down south, people have a certain style.
This is
Where
not a
you are in
matter of
Seattle, have a
style.
certain
This
style.
is not
Southern
a matter
California
of
have a different
style.
style.
You just didn't want to let her speak. It's not a matter of style, Josh.
If that's the case, why would I pull over and quiet and let her speak? If you are
You
correct,
didn't
if what
pull
you're
over
saying
until you
is
got
true,
upset at me.
why would I pull over?
You didn't pull over until you got upset at me, Josh. It wasn't because of Kayla. It wasn't because you wanted to listen to Kayla.
Why are you telling me how I feel? That's what really hurts me the
Those are the
most, Sam, is
facts,
you doing that.
Josh.
That's really
Because I can deal
those are
with
the
what I
see. Yeah,
see and what I
you're
hear.
project. No, but do you realize, Sam, your projection? I think you should see a therapist and see that you're projecting all the things you're accusing me of doing. You're doing to me right now at this moment.
Yeah, I am interrupting you when I let you speak, but then the minute I try to speak, you interrupt me, then I will respond to you in kind.
And if I tell you how I feel, you yell at me.
No, if you tell me how you feel, I will listen. But if you actually are trying to just, I don't know, justify some behavior that I actually think needs to be investigated, I'll lean into that. But if you're talking about your feelings, I don't interrupt. All
Well,
I
I
do
feel
say,
like you're
though,
very mean to me and it hurts my feelings.
I can accept that. I can see how you feel that way. But I also say that I think you don't let women speak. Gail, when she was on here the one time, she told me immediately that was her reaction when she was speaking and you just cut her off. Kayla was just now speaking and you just cut her off. And those are not the only two incidences.
Isn't it interesting that you're projecting these things to me that you do yourself?
Might be interesting, might not be interesting. But what I'm telling you is I've watched this over years.
Let's run it through the AI. I think you and I would do really good
That
if
is
we
why
just
I
objectively
completely
learn to be
agree
better
with that.
people together.
I completely agree with that. Okay, we should take
So let's
all of
do it.
this. That's why I make it possible and it's public. Okay, anybody can do it. You can take this video, run it through AI, okay, and tell me what I did wrong. But you should also look at what you did.
I agree. I want to be a better person. If I was not wanting this, I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you. I wouldn't be coming to
Good,
these meetings.
good, good. Because just like I'm not perfect and I realize sometimes I've overreacted, I am actually giving you my observations. And especially it's important now because Kayla went off in tears. And you don't realize how you, with your behavior, was a big part of that.
You telling me that I don't realize that hurts my feelings.
You don't realize that. You were not at all apologetic.
I just told you how I felt, Sam.
You were not apologetic to her, I mean. You were not apologetic to Kayla. She said
What
she
am I
was in
supposed to
tears
apologize to her for?
for interrupting her and not letting her speak.
When she called me a white man and said, let's hear what the two white men in the room have to say about this?
Yeah, why do you have to
I will
immediately
not
respond to that
apologize for
one
that.
point? Okay, fine. So you
So
will
I take
then.
offense to that.
I'm good.
That's the
I'm
hill
good with
that
that.
I will
I'm good with
stand
that.
on.
You're being honest, Josh. Okay, so I respect that.
I'm
You are
being honest.
essentially
I'm always honest with you.
confirming that actually taking offense and being called a white man is more important than listening to a white woman who's been oppressed actually speak about her experience. That is exactly the thing that we have just revealed. Your willingness to be offended takes priority over listening to a Polynesian woman speak about her experience. That is now clear and it's on the record. I'm glad you clarified
I
that.
see what you're doing. Now you're baiting me because you
I'm
just
not
called her a
baiting you.
white
You
woman and
did
then
it to yourself.
you corrected
You were
yourself.
very clear
No,
about
you're
your
baiting me
priority.
into this. No, this is
You were very
this is
clear about your
obviously
priorities.
let's bait Joshua in. No, this is obviously let's bait someone into a conversation.
Do you think this is
Let's call him
premeditated?
names. Yeah, it's premeditated.
Really? Really?
And it's not just to me, it's to all the people out there. Let's see if we can premeditatively get a white person to admit he's racist. This happens to me literally 30 to 50 times a week on the internet. It's
Now,
so
if it
common that
does, Josh, if
it's
it does,
so
Josh,
annoying.
why would that happen to you, Josh? Do you ever ask that?
Yeah,
Instead of
because
taking offense?
I'm the only white person that wants to stand up for the rights of all people and not want to be called a color. I'm one of the few people in this world that says it's not okay to call people colors and start to ontologically identify people as certain categories and phenotypes so that you can create things around that. I don't think that's okay. I'll stand on that. I'll
Okay,
be one of
I'm
the
glad you're
few
clear. I'm
of
glad you're
millions of
clear.
people that will stand on I don't want to be called a white man, just like I don't want to call someone a black man or a yellow man or a brown woman. I don't think that's okay. I don't
All
think
right.
we should go around the world judging people by their skin color, but more the content of their character. I will stand on that. And if
Okay,
you
I'm
don't
glad
want to
you're clear
stand
on
on
that.
that, and you think it's okay if a woman says to me, hey, let's ask the white man what he thinks. And if he gets offended, he's not allowed to say anything. I'll stand up for
No,
myself.
you're allowed to say things, but you're not allowed to interrupt her and not let her speak.
Doesn't make any sense. So I'm supposed to get berated and called things and not say
She wasn't
anything.
berating you. You're taking things way hypersensitively.
I'm the one taking things hypersensitively.
Very much. Very much.
Okay.
You didn't even want to listen to her point. You just super got, sensitized when she called you a white man, and your ears were completely blocked from then on out.
I totally think she's wrong to call me a white man. Yes. And I said,
I know.
if you
You've
go
made that
back to the
point already.
conversation, I said
You've made
something
that
very
point.
clearly that no one heard. I said, don't judge me and think that you know me and call me a white man because you don't know my heritage and you don't know my 23 and me.
I said produce it, but until then, let her make her point.
I heard you say produce it. How dare you say, oh, so I could, if I want to call you a pedophile and then you have to defend yourself and prove you're not, that's not the way to treat people, Sam.
Oh,
You don't
really?
call people
Really?
names.
Calling someone a white person and calling someone a pedophile, you equate? Jesus. God. Come
You
on,
don't see
Josh.
what's going on here.
Are you really that dumb?
Now you're berating me and calling me dumb.
Yes, I
Look at
am.
you, Sam.
I
You're
am,
not a good
because you
person,
are
Sam.
actually reducing arguments down to stupid shit. Stupid shit.
You're you think you're a good person, but you're a terrible person to call me names and then yell at me for interrupting and being rude to people. It's okay for you to do it, but
You're a
it's not okay for
completely
someone
terrible
else to do it.
person. I'm not saying I'm a good person, but I'm
Well,
saying
why are
you
you
didn't let Kayla
so
speak.
okay, so now we're getting to the real conversation that we really should be having over these years is you want to pass judgment on me, but if I pass judgment on you, you don't like it.
No, I completely am okay with it. You can pass judgment on me however you like.
Are you okay with
Because
it?
absolutely, absolutely. Go and write whatever you want about me.
Can I
Go
pass
speak
judgment
whatever.
on Kate? Can I pass judgment on Kayla in front of you?
I will respond, but yeah,
Can
it's
I
your
judge
right to
her
do
for calling
so.
me a white man in
It's your
front of
right.
you?
It's your right to do
Right. It's
so.
your right also to be quiet and let it's
But you
this
were
is the
not
problem
quiet.
between this
You were
whole
not quiet to
situation.
let her speak.
I didn't get the opportunity to be quiet.
Bullshit. You spoke up and interrupted her when she was speaking. That's bullshit, Josh.
Do you have a problem with something about me, Sam? Say
I
it
have a
now.
problem that you don't let women speak.
That's your problem with me.
Yes.
Are you a woman? Why does that offend you so much?
It doesn't offend me. It offends
Why
not
does
me
that offend you?
personally, because you are not sensitive to the oppression of women and the fact that they have been mistreated for generations and centuries, and you are completely blind to even hearing them speak about that.
Did you ever ask me that question if I'm sensitive to women over generations? Have we had that
I,
conversation? Or did you
no,
make a
we've not had
judgment
that
on me?
confirmation. I
So you
made a
just made
judgment
that
on you.
judgment on me. Yeah,
Yes, I
exactly.
did.
Nice
Over
job, Sam.
years. Over
Nice
years.
job.
Because
Way to
women
go.
have come to me and actually said, this is how I felt. And they've been afraid to speak to you about it. Kayla was about to make a point and you didn't let her.
Did any men come to you and say that?
Yes, men have corroborated that.
So maybe it's not a woman or a man thing. It's just a person thing.
No, it's not that they were oppressed by you. They saw that you oppressed the other women.
But did I oppress the men too?
At times you have, yes.
Yeah. So it's not a woman or a man thing. It's just an oppression thing. It's the way that I speak to people that bothers you.
No, I mean, did you hear that last thing that Kayla was trying to say about the date that she went on with you? You didn't
I did
even let
hear
her
that.
finish that story.
Yeah, I pulled over, Sam. I literally was
You
going
did
home
not
and I
let her
pulled over.
finish. You did not let her finish. You interrupted every time she spoke up.
Sam, I don't know what game you're playing, but if you want to
I'm
air
not playing the
people's dirty
game,
laundry in
Josh.
public, oh yeah, well, let's
This
talk
is
about your
fine.
dirty
This
laundry.
is
Let's talk
completely
about your
on the
dirty
record.
laundry in
This is
public in the
completely
record.
on
Yeah,
the
let's
record.
talk about
Okay?
the times that your things that you've done that are horrible. Why would you do that to somebody? Like, what makes you think it's okay to berate people in public?
Because you didn't let Kayla speak.
So, do you want me to berate you in public, Sam?
If you feel it's justified, absolutely.
Why? Can you explain? I'm very
Because
curious to
then
know
I
why
might
you
actually
think.
learn and become a better person if I actually see it.
So do you think, as a friend, I should do that as someone who you know, like, and
Yes, a
trust?
truly trusted friend would actually say, "Hey, you're being a bullshit, artist right now. Fucking grow up." I would welcome
Okay,
someone
so
saying that
that
to me.
if you want me to do that to you, did you ask me if I want you to do that to me?
No, we didn't actually
Well,
have a.
I think you should ask me that if you want to be my friend.
No, I'm saying that in this opportunity, we didn't have the time because you were in real time interrupting Kayla and not letting her speak.
I understand that. I get that. You've made that very clear. You don't have to keep beating
No,
that
evidently
point.
I do because you said, "Oh, we could have done this, we could have done that, we could have done the other thing." But no, in that real time instance, I had to just point out you were not letting Kayla speak. We didn't have time to say, "Oh, Josh, may I actually become your friend and have a chance to tell you where this is going wrong?" No, you were interrupting her
Right.
every single time she spoke.
I heard you, Sam. Do you understand that I hear you?
Not really, because you keep defending some other point other than this.
Right. That's why our friendship is lacking because you don't think that I understand that I've listened to you and I heard you.
No, I think you've heard me now. But in the moment when you were interrupting Kayla, that was not acceptable. And there was no time to establish friendship or permissions or shit like that because you were actively in that moment interrupting Kayla multiple times in succession.
Right. But what makes you the person who is the police officer of the conversation?
Because I am actually trying to host a conversation here. I'm actually kind of viewed as quote unquote the moderator, although I don't usually moderate to this degree. But if someone is actually being interrupted, I will call it out. I would do that
So
even if I were not the host.
Should I call you out every time you interrupt people?
Yes.
Okay. And who, so this has been the problem with this conversational space, I think, since you started it, is you've never, and everyone's asked you to do this. And you can go back through all the conversations, is put a clarified protocol or rule over who is in charge of policing the conversation.
I could do that. Well, I have, in fact, done that in draft form. We've never actually officially adopted it because there's been no official membership thing. But to the extent that people were aware, yes, that has been written up.
But I'm saying Doug asked you to do that a while ago and put it as like a, before you even join the conversation, some sort of
And I
agreement
did.
button.
I did. I actually put it in that
Yeah.
spreadsheet of behaviors, and I said, "Hey, these are the behaviors that we expect of each other. Please see if you sign up to it." And 14 people did. Okay, not everybody. I think maybe you didn't. Okay, I think you were one of the people that didn't. And if I'm wrong about that, then I apologize. But 14
That's
people
okay.
did. Okay, 14 people actually did. But everybody else, from time to time, I do bring it up that it exists. But there's no formal ratification or certification of that because that's not the way this forum has been created.
Yeah, I think that
So,
needs to get created at some point.
and by the way, not interrupting people was one of the things I made a big point about, is let people speak. Now, to the extent that it's not ratified, sure, you say it's fine for anyone to just interrupt. But I've been consistent through these 8 or 9 years of saying, I don't think when people are speaking that they should be interrupted until they're done.
All right. Can I change the subject for a second to the last time we had a big argument here on this platform with what's
I'm
his
not sure
the
which one you're talking
gentleman's
about because
the
we've had
gentleman's name from
multiple.
Canada? No, I
We've
know.
had
I'm talking
multiple.
about the one with the gentleman from Canada who you felt like I was berating, who's not a woman.
Marc Antoine Perron, right?
Very
Right.
nice gentleman. Mark, we
Yes.
were having a heated conversation. You had left the conversation,
Yep.
then you had left. We're
Yes.
still there, and then you came back and told me I was wrong and kicked me out.
No, not that you were wrong, but again, that you were interrupting Marc Antoine
Right.
every time he
But
wanted
it's
to
not
speak.
because he's a woman.
No, he was a
Right.
man, but you
Right.
did not let him speak, and
No,
that
I
also was
agree.
repeatedly,
Correct. Wait,
and
you're
that's what
doing
I
it
was
again to
objecting
me.
to.
Sim, you yell at me and tell me not to yell at people. You see,
Because
you
they're
do
not.
that. No, I know, I
I
know. I do something that triggers you to some point where I don't get why I'm triggering you so much. So it's like this feedback loop you and I go into where I'm trying to calm my cortisone levels down, and then you start yelling at me and it heightens mine back up. And then I heighten yours, and we just keep doing that. And that's where usually men's testosterone makes each other fight.
I don't usually intervene unless I feel someone's voice is actually being actively oppressed. And when I saw that in Marc Antoine and you, and I saw that with Kayla and you, I definitely felt like I needed to be on the record as saying, hey, I'm not just going to be a bystander here. Okay. Regardless of whether I'm a moderator or host or, official, anything, I just have to call it as I see it. And the way I saw it, you were not letting Marc Antoine even finish his statements, just like you were not letting Kayla finish her statements today. And that's what I felt compelled to actually go on the record with. Over.
I'm gonna take a second so you know I heard you and I'm listening to you and
Okay.
I get
That's
what you're
good.
saying and I'm learning. I appreciate this conversation because I'm learning we're more similar than we are different because what you do is you stand up in that moment because you believe it's so thoroughly in your heart and soul that you need to stand up for that person and protect that person. And you will interrupt and do that because you have the moral justification and it's so strong in your heart that you will do that. And I not only respect that, understand that, but that's exactly who I am too. I do the same thing. But instead of
Okay,
standing
I'm
up for
taking a few
someone
seconds.
else,
I'm taking a
I'm
few
standing up
seconds
for
now to
myself.
ingest that. Yes,
Yeah,
you're
take some
standing up
time
for
to
yourself,
ingest that. Right.
whereas I felt like, see, Marc Antoine was very new to this particular conversation forum at that time. So I didn't want him to think that that was the accepted style and that anyone could interrupt at any time. Okay. Now, Kayla's been around for years. Okay. She knows I believe she knows that that
Sam,
is
who
not
who
our accept.
invited Kayla to the conversation space?
You did. You did. I know that you did. Okay. That's clear.
Why not enter to the conversation space?
I think that's irrelevant for this particular point. Okay.
Okay, well, let's
Now,
talk about Mark Antoine then. Why you invited him to the space and you felt like he didn't understand it. So all you did is to step up and show him that assholes like Josh aren't allowed to do that. And you're the tough guy and you can prove that Josh is being a jerk and he's talking over you. And how dare you, Joshua? You cannot talk over Mark Antoine. He's new to this conversation space. This is not acceptable here. And I'm setting the boundaries and the rules right now. There's a line you've crossed. And how dare you?
do you realize that more than one person has come to me and observed exactly the same thing in the case of Marc Antoine Perron?
Do you realize more than one person has come to me about you, Sam?
Completely fine. But I'm
I
open.
I have at least 30
I'm
people from
open.
GCC who have come to me and said, I love Sam. He's awesome. But there are times where he does this talk over thing and he thinks that he's so righteous that he talks over everybody and he
I'm aware that I
controls it.
drive people away. I am. Okay.
Right. We're
I
more
am.
like each other. Like, that's just what's so funny about this fact. You and I are more like each other than we are different.
So this is actually a very good conversation. We've needed to have this
Yeah.
conversation for a while. Okay. I'm giving you the things the way I see it. Okay. And you're giving me things the way you see it. Completely fine. Okay. But as long as we understand each other, hopefully there's a better mutual understanding of what's going on. However, I still have to go back to the point that Kayla had to leave this
Why do you have to
conversation
keep going
in
back to that
tears
point?
because that's the one that triggered this conversation, Josh.
But
And you still
I
defend
could
your
tell you
behavior
I
there.
could
You still
not
defend your behavior here.
only did I say then I'll defend it now, and I'll also say what makes you think that you have to protect her like she's a weak person? She's strong. Her and I have had a
I don't have
friendship
to
before you
protect
even
her,
knew
okay?
her.
I am just
Yeah,
standing
what is this all
as
about?
a person who is not just letting
Who
bullshit.
are you standing up for, Sam?
I don't want to be a third party that is not taking an active role, okay?
What do you
You don't have
mean?
to
Do you
stand
think I'm
up.
trying to hurt her?
I think you're actually oppressing her voice and her opinion. Yes.
Okay, so that's the real conversation is you think I'm
Yes.
trying to hurt Kayla and oppress her voice.
Yes.
You don't believe that my genuine friendship towards her is real and that her and I didn't have a friendship before you had a friendship with her and that we'll have
That
a
is
friendship.
irrelevant. That is an irrelevant point.
No, it is very relevant. It's the whole point. You had to stand up and say, I am wrong and I'm oppressing Kayla, and you're going to stand up for her as a man.
No, I am going to
She's
stand
a
up because
woman.
it's not the only instance. Okay. It's not the only instance, Josh.
No, but look at what you actually did and what you're actually doing is you're still standing up. What are you doing, Sam?
I'm actually saying for you to oppress Kayla's voice here is not letting her voice or her experience be expressed. And that is the problem that many women, not just Kayla, many women have suffered through decades and generations. And it's exactly your behavior that is exemplar of that.
Right. So you're making an example out of me or other things in the past. That's my point. That's what I'm standing up
Because
for
it is
myself is
in
I
the
don't like
moment.
being made an
It's
example.
no, no, no,
Right. But
no,
in the
no.
moment, I'm the example of the
No,
white
Josh,
man, which is what
you
she
were
tried to do to me.
detracting the conversation by taking offense at something so that she could not make her point.
Sam, I'm not stupid. When a woman says, let's
Josh, you
ask
are
the white
stupid when
man
it
in
comes
the
to women,
room,
Josh,
why am I stupid when it comes to women, Sam?
because you're not listening to him. You don't let Kayla be listened to. Even if you don't want to listen, there are other people in the conversation, such as myself, who would listen, but you didn't let that happen.
Okay.
You needed to speak over her repeatedly. And you need to acknowledge that, or it's on record actually, but you don't seem to want to acknowledge that.
No, I got it. I hear you loud and clear, Sam. You believe that I speak over women, but you also believe I speak over men. So what I'm hearing you say loud and clear is I speak over people when I want to get my point across, and that's not the way to interact in your society. In your viewpoint, I am wrong. I
In
get it.
simple terms, yes. I
That's
would
what you're
I would say
saying.
yes. Yes.
Yeah. And if I want to be your friend and be in spaces with you, I need to act differently and treat you with respect.
No, I think you need to treat generally other people with more respect because you don't when you actually interrupt people repeatedly and
But
just try to make your
why
point
am I that example? Why did
simply because you're offended. Okay, simply because you're offended.
I didn't say I was offended. I'm trying to
You
listen to
did
you,
say
Sam.
you were offended. You were offended that she called you a white man.
No, but that's not you. I'm listening to you right now and your feelings and what you're talking about. And I'm doing all the things you asked me to sit and listen. You tell me I don't listen, so I'm sitting here and listening to you, and all I'm getting is yelled at for doing it. That doesn't feel good.
Because you're still acknowledging that you oppressed Kayla's point. You oppressed her speech. You oppressed her opportunity to make a point and ask a question simply because you objected to her calling you a white man. I
I
suspect that's
told
not
you
the
I did
first time
that.
you've been called a white man. I suspect you've been called a white man many times before.
Yes, I
But
have.
but you chose to make an issue of it this particular time, which meant that she could not make her point.
And I've made an issue of it every other time someone called me a white man.
So is that your way of not listening to them?
Sam, can we have a different conversation where you think you have the moral high ground and you yell at me and belittle me? Can we have a different conversation than that? Because I find that very disrespectful and it's making me lose respect for you as a human.
I don't need respect from you, Josh. I'm trying to stick to the point.
What is your point?
My point is you did not let Kayla make her point. You
And I
needed to
told you
detract
why.
from
We've
the.
had this conversation for an hour now, and I've told
Yeah,
you
but you're
why I
still
didn't
acknowledging that
let her
that's the
make her
point. You're
point.
trying to make it something
And
else.
I still will not. The next time she calls me a white man, I'll tell her, don't you dare call me a white man. And don't you ask what the white men, me and Barry, think. And don't label me as a color. I will make that point forever, Sam. I told you that.
Okay, well,
That
then
is the point of Martin Luther King. The great Martin Luther King said, what did he
the great
say in
Martin
his
Luther
speech, Sam?
King
Repeat
said
it back.
stuff
You're
about
smart.
white men often. Jeez.
What did he say in the famous speech where he said, don't judge people on the color of their skin, but the content of their character? That's what he said. Those are his words.
Yeah, but I'm also going to go back and
I agree with him.
I'll be glad to be corrected if I'm wrong, but I believe in many of his speeches he did mention white men in his speeches. Okay, let me go back and find those instances.
And I believe if I was there, I would look at Martin Luther King in the face and say, don't call me a white man. And I would say that to Malcolm X. Don't judge me as a white man. Judge me as a human being. I'd say that to both of their faces. I don't care if they're Kayla or Mark Pierre or you. I will say that to anyone because I believe that we should not judge people by the color of their skin.
Okay, well,
That's the truth. I'm not being
fine,
hyperbolic or sensitive. I'm being honest.
fine. So you and I can have different values. Your value is let's not call people by the color of their skin. My value is let's not interrupt people when they're speaking. Okay, so when you interrupt someone, I'm going to speak up because I feel just as strongly about that as you feel when you are called a white man. So if you
But then
feel
you're doing the same thing
justified,
to me that you don't want me to do to
exactly,
other
exactly,
people.
exactly,
That's not
exactly.
cool,
Okay.
Sam.
You're saying that that's fine. You're saying that's fine because you say you can interrupt anybody anytime you want when they call you a white man. So if I feel in my value system that it's wrong to interrupt, then I should feel equally
Sam,
justified to
if you
interrupt you
okay, now we're
whenever
getting
you interrupt
somewhere.
somebody. Okay.
Now we're getting somewhere. I don't think that's the right way to act. I don't think
But you
that's the
do.
best
You
way
did
to do
it.
it.
You did it, Josh,
Yes, why did I do it, Sam?
because you are offended by being called a white man.
You're not listening to me. You asked me to listen to you. I spent an hour listening to you. Now listen to me for a second. I did it because that is a hill I believe so strongly. And the way I go about getting my point across is not the best way. It's the only one I know thus far. And I could do better. And I heard you and I hear you. There's ways of communicating that could be better. And I'm not a perfect person. And I'm trying to get better. Do you hear now? You hear that when I said I was crying, I actually was, tears were about to come out of my eyes and I could feel the emotion of Kayla and I was trying to pull over the car and not like, do you understand that I'm not some monster that you're making me out to be and you make an example of me that I'm a horrible person? That's not who I am. Do you hear
I'm
me when I
only.
say these things? When I'm talking to
I do hear
Mark
you.
Pierre? What's
I
his
do hear
name?
you. Marc Antoine.
But do you see me, Marc Antoine? I was having such a wonderful conversation about a point that I was trying to make about where the virus came from. And there's just recent information I would love to, I'll reach out to Marc Antoine and say, it is new information has come to light that he didn't have. And I was trying to give that information. And all you heard was me yelling over him as opposed to a heated argument between
Yes.
two very respectful adults.
I don't think you were
And then
being
you guys
respectful
come
to
in
him.
and say, you're wrong.
I don't think you were
I
being
know you
respectful to
don't
him.
think that, but to yell at me is not giving me the same treatment that you want me to give to others. It's not helping, Sam. What I'm doing is not helping. What you're doing is not helping. We both agree on that.
We could agree on that. I'm not
Me
perfect.
talking
Okay.
over people, I'm not perfect either.
Okay. So as a meta comment,
I
okay,
do leave the white man thing. I'll stand on that hill. Yeah, good.
as a point of meta point, if this gets to 4 hours long, okay, YouTube doesn't let me post it. So we have about 16, 15
No,
minutes or
I've got
so.
to go. My family has been waiting for me for 2 hours. I've got to go. Like, this
Okay.
is important, but not as important as my family.
Okay. I agree. So thank you for staying engaged because I do think that, at least on my part, I understand you a little bit better. But I do think that I don't yet feel that you were really curious to hear what Kayla had to say. You were more interested in being offended because throughout this entire epilogue, I've not heard you say, "Yeah, I wish I had heard what Kayla had said." No, you were very, very interested in expressing the fact that you were offended, but not, what Kayla's experience was. So that's why I feel that, it wasn't important for you to hear what she had to say. It was very important for you to express that you were offended by a choice of words. And that's why I made it very clear that your priorities are you being offended way outranks and way out prioritizes listening to a woman talk about her experience.
A person. Please don't use gender.
She's a woman. She acknowledges she's a woman.
I did not judge her
See,
on her
again,
gender.
you are detracting from the point. This is your
Are
style,
you?
Josh.
This is your style. Let's get on the record
No,
that
I'm on the point.
you're like one of those people in Congress that tries to catch someone in something. I don't dig it, Sam. I really don't like
Okay,
that
I'm
style.
really glad this is on the record. Okay, you and I can both be accountable for our own behavior here. I'm hoping that we both are.
No, no. I think we both will be, and I think the style that you have is to catch someone in doing something
I'm not catching
and try.
anybody. I'm just listening to what I'm
So,
hearing
so why don't
and
you just?
clarifying.
Here's what we both say. Yeah. So let me get the last word. If you want to have the last word, I think that you and I both do not listen to each other well enough to understand where each other is coming from, and that we both make judgments on each other. And I think if we were to be better friends and have a better talking space, we need to do better at that point right there.
Fine, I'll agree with you there. I'll agree with you there.
And I think when you say
That
a
can be your last point.
woman
Okay.
on the record, no, my last point is I do not appreciate when someone says a white man and then has to speak, or says when you do it to a woman, because I know a lot of women that are, and you're trying to make the statement that I'm evil to women and get that on the record so that that can be in the future AIs or something. No, Sam, I'm not going to let you do that to me because I treat Mark Antoine and Kayla the same way. I treat you and a woman the same way. And you know that about me. You know that's a fact. You can ask anyone that's been in these spaces.
Okay,
That's a
fine.
fact.
You can have that last word. Anyway, I'm glad we had this. I agree with you. I don't think it's over, but I think we've made a small step towards some kind of mutual understanding, perhaps.
Perhaps, but perhaps not.
Perhaps not.
I don't feel like you heard anything I said, but and you don't feel like I heard anything you said, so I don't see how we made any headway.
Well, I do think that we both feel that we have some, otherwise, neither of us would still be here.
I'm gonna think about this, and I hope we can have another conversation at some point. But this
And
is
Josh,
very
I will post this, okay? And I encourage you to run it through an AI, really, okay? But when you do,
post away.
all I ask is don't pick and choose, okay? If you actually interact with AI, post the entire AI response, not just little snippets of it, okay?
Uh, how about this? Let's make an agreement. Post this to the internet. I'll run it through Notebook LM, and let's have another GCC where we ask the Notebook LM some of the questions, and we can ask human beings in the room too. And if you want to have more conversation and more in depth about, it's not a question of who's right or wrong. It's, to me, the question is, how do you treat people the way you want to be treated? That would be,
Yes,
can we end at that? Because I
that
think
would be
you and
good.
I
That
both
would be
agree
good.
on that.
That is good
Okay.
because that's would make progress towards collaborology. Yes.
Yeah. And I want to treat you the way you want to be treated, and I want you to treat me the way I want to be treated. And that's the only thing I'm looking for in this conversation.
Oh, maybe. I might agree to that, but right now I
No,
still have
no,
to
I'm
think
telling
about
you
it.
that's my feelings. I'm not saying that's yours, Sam. I'm
Okay.
saying I want you to treat me the way you want to be treated, and I want to treat you the way I want to be treated. And I think there's a difference in that, and we need to learn that at some point so we both feel that we're treated properly and we're giving each other enough space and Bohemian dialogue and
Okay. Good.
generosity and all those
That
good
would be
things
a
that
good
come with
interim
friendship.
step. I don't think that's the final step, but that's a good interim step. Okay.
Fair
All right.
enough.
All
Let's
right.
do it.
All right.
Thank you,
I'll
Sam.
post this ASAP.
Cheers.
Okay. Bye bye.
Sounds great. I don't know who
Okay.
wants to watch this, but sounds great. Thank you.
Maybe just you and I.
And for
Maybe not even that.
don't let Barry watch it because his cortisol levels. I felt really the most bad. I felt bad when Kayla started to cry. I started to cry, and
Yep.
then when Barry got upset, I got
Yep.
upset. And I really don't like this, Sam. That's one of the reasons why you notice I don't come to these conversations as often. Is I don't want to have these conversations.
But the
I thought
key
we were.
is though,
It catches me off guard.
we have to have these
I don't
conversations.
want
Okay.
to, Sam. I don't. I felt like I was baited
Because
into that. I
if we
felt
don't have
like
these
literally.
conversations, okay, all right. Let me make one more last point. I guess I had to, okay? If we don't have these conversations,
Go
then
ahead.
what I do that's maybe, not as civilized as it could be, or what you do, which is not as civilized as could be, persists. I think these conversations have at least a small chance of letting one or both of us grow. That's the hope that I have. Over. Okay? Bye for now.
Cheers.